Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Tuesday, March 19th Board of Selectmen meeting agenda. Before I read the agenda and we do the pledge, I just want to make a brief announcement. Did some late-breaking things on one of the items that is on the agenda tonight, the fire station funeral home RFP. One of our board members lives in close proximity, and it's in question on whether he has a conflict or not. So that item is going to be postponed, and it's a TBD until we can get it all figured out. So if there's anybody here for that, we are not going to be discussing that tonight. So with that, I'll read the agenda. 7 o'clock, citizens input. 7:05, Foxborough Cleanup Day 2019. 7:10, complete street prioritization plan. 7:15, Conservation Commission appointment. 7:20, public hearing, Foxborough Hospitality LLC doing business as Six String. 7:35, public hearing, Foxborough Regional Center for Performing Arts, Inc., doing business as Orpheum Theater Annual Wine and Malt License. 7:50, public hearing, Class 2 license application. 8:05, Sage School Charity Wine License. 8:15, Planning Department Summer Intern. 8:25, DPW Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners. And then 9:45, reappointment interim finance director, town accountant. 10 o'clock, RFP CIP recommendations, or review CIP recommendations, sorry. 10:15, selectmen's update. 10:20, town manager's update. 10:25, assistant town manager's update. And then we have several action items. So with that, I would like to invite the Cub Scouts from Pack 116 and 70 up to lead the pledge. Our assistant town manager just gave them a guided tour of Town Hall. They're working on their Arrow of Light requirements, citizenship in the community. So I'd like to have them lead the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Flags over here, guys. There we go. Right?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That was awesome.
Thanks, guys. Good luck. Oh, and hey, public service announcement. Public service announcement. This Sunday at the Ahern is the pancake breakfast, raising money for all the good things that the Scouts do, and they donate 10% back to community service projects in the town. So I will see all of you there. Thanks, boys. All right, a little after 7. Anybody here for citizens input?
I am, Mr. Chairman.
Come up to the microphone,
Thank
state
you.
your name.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Dennis Naughton, and I'm just here as a resident of the town. I have a couple of questions. The first one is, if I wish to speak to the issue of the water and sewer requests on the budget, can I do that then, or do I need to do that now?
Then.
All right. So, other than that, I just wanted to ask, I've been away for a number of weeks, and I was catching up on what's going on in town, and I saw that in the January 8th minutes, there was an issue involving the Child Sexual Abuse Awareness Committee. And as I understood it, there was a concern raised by a member of that committee. That member was told that it wasn't business for that committee because they were essentially functioning as under the Selectmen. That was my understanding. I hope that's correct. But I read on, and it said that Kay Conley, that's the town attorney, confirmed the reason for holding executive session is for pending litigation. So I understand that things have to take place in executive session if you're talking about strategy, I would think. But can you confirm or deny that the town is being sued?
We really can't discuss anything from an executive session or anything during citizens input.
So what I'm taking away is that We're not denying the town's being sued.
Not saying anything one way or the other.
We just can't discuss it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. The other issue is that I was wondering why that matter was taken off the agenda tonight that was originally in an amended agenda put forward to the 19th, and that's the policy with regard to,
During my selectmen's update, I was going to discuss that.
okay. Thank you. All right, then, I'll just wait patiently until that other matter comes up. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the board.
Anybody else for citizens input? Chris?
Hi, I'm Chris Gunn. I own Primo Sandwich Shops in the building at 6 Mechanic Street. The reason I am, well, first of all, I'd like to thank Jim for his service over the last couple of years. You know, watching from afar, I haven't always agreed with him, but he goes with his heart and what he feels is best for the town, and you don't always find that in these positions. And it's a
Thank you, Chris.
thankless position for all of you, I understand that, especially with that agenda tonight. Good luck. The reason I'm here is to discuss the issue of parking on Mechanic Street. 31 years ago, I opened up the business I have today, and they were pretty stringent in terms of what I had to do in order to get this business, including, at one point, they made me have a parking study. Union Straw has opened, and I hear it's a wonderful place and good food, but it seems like not a lot of thought was put into the parking. They've moved a lot of the parking. There's 15-minute signs over at Sammy's at the House of Pizza. It seems to have moved a lot of traffic over to me. The building's address is actually 8 Mechanic, so your GPS will bring them to basically me. The original idea was a nice restaurant would bring more people downtown. All I see is people coming downtown from out of town. They eat their dinner and then they go. I lose my spots every single night. And originally, I wasn't that upset because I figured, okay, customers are coming up and going out for a nice dinner and leaving after 2 hours. Well, it comes to find out that it's their employees that are parking on the street. And I have talked to the employees, I have talked to my customers, their customers, I have talked to the police, I have talked to business owners. I am here alone tonight, but I had 4 other offers of people to come with me. I'll take the hit. I came on, they had a meeting late January, early February, and I came in to see Mr. Keegan on February 15th. We had a short meeting. He said, I'm sorry, we're working on it. We had a meeting. I tried to pin him down with a timeline. He couldn't give me a timeline. He wouldn't give me a timeline. I came 10 days later to follow up. He was not available. I left my name and number with someone I know up at the office. I am still waiting for that call. And we have caller ID. I have people there. I never received anything. I'll tell you, folks, it gets frustrating. This is money. Everything's about money. Everything everywhere is about money. This is very frustrating because I've seen my night sales go down because my customers, and a bunch of them have said, like, hey, I was going to stop in, but I drove by, there was no parking. It's so frustrating. I went down to see Sammy last Friday. He's got 15-minute signs in front of his shop. He said it took him 2 years to get those signs. Everything seems to move at a snail's pace. And he was still irate because he said even with those signs, he pointed to a car outside that had been there for 4 hours that night. What are you going to do? A couple of cars were ticketed last Saturday. One of them is back in the same spot today. 7 of those cars there tonight have been there for 3 hours. And again, if they aren't there, at least their customers would be able to park there and then go. I figured the restaurant management would figure if there are spaces being taken by their employees, that's less area for their customers. But the problem is, if you're going there, you have a reservation, so you're going to find parking no matter what. And most of the cars parking in front of me could care less. So I'm asking, what do I do? It's so frustrating. I've worked my butt off. I work 6 days a week. I'm in on the 7th. Mr. Keegan, you make a ton of money, and you have assistants. I make a pittance. I won't have a pension. Everything I don't make is money that I would need for my future. And I'm just getting tired. Never in this town has a problem like this arisen. There's not been that much. And now you have, you'll have another spot opening up down the line. I will make it clear that at that building, the residents were there for a full year before that restaurant, plus before the restaurant opened up, and there's never been an issue with the residential parking. In fact, I prefer the residents because at least they stay in the area and they come in and visit the local businesses. So you make some money. But the only one benefiting right now is Union Straw. And as much as everybody wants to tell me they feel bad for me or I'm sorry, I need something to be done. I need to put that boot into somebody's butt and get things moving.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Yeah. Please. Ladies first.
They've seen me
Am I
before.
not scared?
Are you coming up for citizens input?
Yes.
Yeah, all right, you want to just come up?
Evening. Pat Stevens, 63 Mechanic Street. Hi, Leah. The rest of them know me. I'm back again. I want to know if the selectmen have done anything, any discussions about the traffic, not the speed limit in town? Because the selectmen are now, from what I understand from the state, are the ones that decide what the speed limit is. I was here last year, and nothing's changed. Cars are still speeding up and down Mechanic Street and everywhere else in town.
We'll have to, I thought we did look into something last year on that, so we'll have to kind of revisit.
Yeah, it's been a long time, but we have looked at it. We have provided enforcement all over town.
Yeah.
And the speed of the traffic is not the issue. The issue is it's a volume issue. It's a volume of traffic. It's an issue everywhere in every community, not just Foxborough.
The speed of the traffic is the issue, Bill.
Well,
I was
That's
out in my front
understandable,
yard
but-
today.
I understand, but I think the issue is that the more volume you have, obviously you have more people traveling, and some people abide by speed limit, some people don't. And that's the challenge we face. We can't limit every single person. It's impossible to enforce. It's impossible.
We
to
can
enforce.
lower the speed limit like Randolph has and Canton has and Norwood has to 25 miles an hour.
It's possible, but it's something that I think the entire town would have to abide by that, and that's not an easy thing to do.
Well, they don't have to
We'll look.
abide by it, but you people have to make the decision to change it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Let's look into what our
I'll be back.
options are.
Thank
Fair
you.
enough.
Anybody else, you had citizens input?
Hi, thank you for having me.
Just state your name and where
Yes,
you live.
my name is Adam Margolis. I live on East Belcher Road area. I know this is going to be talked about a little bit later on in tonight's meeting about the Complete Street Initiative, but I just wanted to give a quick note about that. So I currently live on East Belcher Road, with my wife and 2 young children. Seeing that one of the Complete Street's goals is to make accessing streets safer for all users of the road, I believe that East Belcher Road would be a prime candidate for sidewalks. Between the Comcast Center, the Comcast Building, the Cheer Gym, Ice Hockey Rink, Tree Tech Dump, Dooley Disposal, and the many trucking and construction companies that are located on East Belcher, our road serves as a crossroad for a tremendous amount of traffic. We also serve as a crossroad between Mansfield and Foxborough. The new development and street that will be constructed on East Belcher Road are only going to increase that traffic. I cannot begin to count the number of times that my wife and I have been forced off the road with our stroller onto swampy grass with our children and possibly get hit. What's worse is that I don't know if even half of the drivers know that they almost wiped out our entire family. Soon our children are expected to walk the same road alone to their bus stop on Mason every day. I fear for their safety, and what if our children aren't paying attention one day? I hope this issue is resolved before a child or adult gets hit by a car or truck. This is a tremendous opportunity for the town to increase the safety of one of its most dangerous roads. What will be the procedure for moving projects forward on this road? And how are the roads chosen to be part of the Complete Street Initiative?
Okay, we are gonna discuss that shortly, so,
Excellent.
thank you. Anybody else, citizens input? Seeing none, 7:05 Foxborough Cleanup Day.
Chris, do you think it's worth just, a lot of people came in a note just mentioning the change to the agenda again?
Yeah, for anybody that just did come in, the agenda item for 9 o'clock on the fire station funeral home, we're gonna postpone that, TBD. Ran into some complications late this afternoon, so if anybody's here for that, we are not gonna be discussing that at all tonight. Welcome.
All set?
Yep.
Well, hi, I'm Tina Bellinger from the Cleanup Foxborough Day Committee. I don't know where Mr. Dooley is. I thought he was joining me tonight, but I guess I'll speak for the entire committee, which consists of myself, Mr. Dooley, AJ Dooley from Dooley Disposal, Lori Babensic, and our student representative, Joseph Garrity. And as you know, our terms run from May to May, and Joe wanted me to make sure that you knew that he would like to be on the committee again next year. So we appreciate Joe's help.
He's not with you.
I am surprised as well, but he apparently had another commitment as well. So we're here tonight to ask for your approval to do our 7th annual Cleanup Foxborough Day on Saturday, April 27th, 2019. And hopefully we will get approved for the date. We'll get the approval. Schneider Electric has been generous in the past, allowing us to use their grove on Bird Street at the Railroad Ave and Bird Street right there. Hopefully we will proceed in exactly the same manner that we have the last 6 years previous. So as you know, it started when our town historian, Mr. Athalet, noticed that we had a lot of litter on the common and around town and approached AJ with this idea. And AJ jumped right on board and donated his time and the use of his trucks, and they got the whole thing organized, 7 years ago. And Jack invited me to come aboard their team a couple years after that, having participated with our Boy Scouts and many, many other people in town. Usually we have I think we started out with about 150 volunteers, and I think at our largest, we've had about 400 volunteers. So it's a great day. Let's see, do you have any other questions for me?
No, just same as usual.
Same as usual. Most of our donations are in terms of goods. We have donations of the tents from differentials, the porta potties from United Porta Potties. The space is donated by Schneider. All of the garbage bags and gloves are donated. I have the whole list. You don't want me to read the whole list because you've got a really long agenda tonight. But we either get goods, or if we get a monetary donation, it goes towards the safety T-shirts that are handed out to all of our volunteers the day of. And those donations are checks directly made out to the T-shirt vendor. So we don't take in any monies at all.
Okay.
Clean up Foxborough Day.
Can you guys just make a note to come back to the board the meeting after, give us an update, and we can-
After the day is done?
Yeah, and we
Sure.
can reappoint you all if you so choose.
I would be delighted to. It's one of my favorite things that I do in Foxborough.
Anybody on the board have any questions?
Just quickly, I've seen you since day one doing it, I appreciate it. An issue came up the weekend, I don't know if it's the appropriate time to bring it up now. Your son asked my daughter to the junior prom.
I don't
Just
think
found out
that's,
about it, she said yes.
Sam's going to be so thrilled that
But
we're
I said,
discussing this
I just
on
found out
television
about
right now.
I'll get back to you
So
on
in
that
the
one.
interest of full disclosure, we
We don't know
have-
yet. No, I saw pictures, I didn't see him, but it'd be interesting. But seriously, thank you for the effort all these years doing that.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
starting from the
It's a
beginning.
great day in Foxborough, and this town is full of wonderful volunteers. We always get lots of Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts and Brownies and the sports teams and kids from the high school and groups of friends in cleaning up their own neighborhoods, and the Rotary Club, the Lions Club. All of our service organizations are very helpful, and I've already had people sign up. So once we get your approval for our date, we will get our website completely updated, and we'll send an email blast out to everyone who has participated in the past and get things rolling. So hopefully it'll be another successful day, excuse me, and good weather. Fingers crossed. We have had good weather every year.
Don't
so
say it.
I know. Knock on wood. So, but thank you for having us here.
All right, so do I have a motion to approve the
So
date?
move to approve Foxborough Cleanup Day 2019 for April 27th, 2019.
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thanks. Good luck.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks,
I'll
Tina.
see you all there.
Make sure you'd let Joe know that I want him back here for the first meeting in May.
I will let him know.
All right.
Absolutely, and AJ too.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So we do have a public hearing that starts at 7:20, so I would like to get that moving, if that's all right. So Leah, do you want to read that?
Yep, let me just bring it up. The six strings one, I assume, correct?
Yes.
Okay. The Board of Selectmen, acting as the local licensing authority pursuant to MGL Chapter 138, will conduct a public hearing on Tuesday, March 19th, 2019, beginning at 7:20 PM in the Gala Meeting Room, Town Hall, 40 South Street, on the application of an on-premises all-alcohol restaurant license authorized by special legislation, Chapter 300 of Acts of 2016, and on acceptance of the provisions of MGL Chapter 138, Section 33B, sales of alcoholic beverages by on-premises licensees on Sundays between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. and certain legal holidays for Foxborough Hospitality LLC, doing business as Six String, 275 Patriot Place, manager Gregory Springer. Additionally, licensee requests approval of a common vic and 7-day entertainment license for established hours of operation. All interested parties are welcome to attend.
Good evening.
Good evening. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm Brian Early, Vice President and General Manager of Patriot Place. Thank you for the opportunity tonight to introduce you to the newest tenant at Patriot Place, Foxborough Hospitality LLC, doing business as Six String. We could not be more excited to introduce Six String, a full-service restaurant and live music venue, to the town. Six String will be located at 275 Patriot Place, the former space occupied by Toby Keith's I Love This Bar and Grill, which closed in January. Patriot Place has spent considerable time working with this operating group, which is part of the Breyer Group family of restaurants, to bring them to Foxborough. Their plans to renovate the space and bring back a high-caliber dining offering as well as quality live entertainment have been most impressive. Quality live entertainment, operated with guest safety as a cornerstone, is very important to Patriot Place management and the town. The senior leadership team from the Breyer Group has already made it a point to meet with various representatives of the town, including the town manager, chief of police, and the building commissioner prior to tonight's meeting. You will hear from Austin O'Connor, principal, owner of the Breyer Group, and other members of his restaurant team, as well as principals of DFTR, the music management group that has partnered with Foxborough Hospitality to oversee the music and entertainment aspect of this venture. With more than 30 years of experience in 14 highly successful restaurants and entertainment venues throughout the Boston market, I think after tonight's presentation, you will agree with me that we have found a very talented, financially secure, and highly professional team to take over an extremely important space at Patriot Place as we enter the second decade of operation of Patriot Place. And equally important to me and the Kraft family, this group is locally owned, accountable, and very much hands-on. So I'll now turn it over to the attorney representing the Breyer Group and Foxborough LLC, Steve Miller.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Brian's kind of stolen my thunder and given you the whole story, but despite that, I'd like to introduce you to Austin O'Connor, who's the principal of the Breyer Group, and he and his family will own 60% of the proposed licensee. Mike Mushak, representing the remaining owners of the group, which we consider the music owners of the group. And also have Tom Shea, who's been with the Breyer Group as the Chief Operating Officer since 1994. We have some other people here. somewhere. Just stand up so you know. We have the proposed manager of record, Greg Springer, who has worked for the Breyer Group for approximately over 20 years. Desi Kearns, who came over from Ireland in 1988 to work with the Breyer Group. Did I forget anybody? We have the chef, which is probably pretty important. Mike Gracie, who has also worked for the Breyer Group for 20 years. So I'll turn it over to Austin. I'll just tell you that I've represented, and my partners have represented the Breyer Group for probably 20 years and have watched them grow. It's a great family operation. They're very well respected in and around the city of Boston, where the majority of their places are. I know, I believe the chief here had spoken to the police in Boston about their record. I can speak to their record since I've represented them. They have a incredibly strong record of enforcement and security. And saying that, I'll turn it over to Austin to give you an overview of their company.
Great. Thank you. Again, Austin O'Connor, the CEO and owner of the Breyer Group. I'll give you a little history about kind of who we are, who I am. It's a family business. Excuse me. Both my parents immigrated from Ireland, and my father asked me to come back to work for him in 1988 because he was opening up the Greenbrier in Brighton. That's when I met Desi. He's my cousin from Ireland. And, you know, with both with literally my brother, my two sisters, my father, Desi, we opened up the Greenbrier. And with very little background in the hospitality world, successful opening. And since then, we're working really hard at building a company. My parents are still with us, but not active. And over those last 30 years, it'll be 30 years this July, you know, I worked really hard at building a good team. The people we have here today have been with us for 20 years plus. And, you know, we had an opportunity to look here in Foxborough, and it made a lot of sense for us to come out here, and we were asked and partnered up with Mike and his team to look at Toby's, and working very closely with Brian for quite some time now. And we're very excited about coming here to Foxborough. And just the background and, you know, just it's very important for me interacting with the town. You know, we focus our monies giving back to the town. We stay within the town. You know, Greg, our general manager, will be here all the time, active within the town for any things that are important to the police or to the community. I think my partner, Mike, and his team, I'd like to introduce him and have him tell a little bit about his history, and he'll come back to me and I can introduce Tom. Mike?
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having us and listening to what I have to say. My name is Mike Mushak. I grew up in Western Massachusetts, specifically Ludlow. Spent most of my life there. I started playing guitar when I was 6 years old. Always wanted to be a professional musician. Worked very hard towards that. In 1994, I graduated Western New England College with a degree in electrical engineering, and it was also the same year that I started a band called Stained. We were based out of Western Mass, worked very hard. Were able to get a record deal with Atlantic Records. We put out our first major label record in 1998. Went on to sell over 15 million records around the world and toured the world for many years. In that time, I made a lot of different acquaintances, agents, managers, obviously musicians that I played with, and made a lot of great relationships through that time. I have partnered for this project with two gentlemen, Dennis Callahan and Dan Millen, who are promoters in the Boston area for also 20 years and have been promoting shows in and around Boston during that time. In fact, Dan Millen played a big part in helping Toby Keith's early on when it was successful in bringing in national acts, and you know, at the time when they were doing better than it was, you know, in more recent years. So we feel he'll be a big part in also helping what we want to do is help promote a lot of the local artists, because there's some great musicians in the area, some great bands in the area. We want to maintain that. And I feel like my role will be to bring in some more national acts, up-and-coming acts, and maybe some more heritage acts to make a really fun live entertainment venue. And we feel very privileged to have partnered with the Breyer Group, because we know the quality of the food and that what their team brings to it. So I think that it's a great relationship between us and them to bring a very fun entertainment venue and great food and a place for families to come and enjoy themselves, and very safe environment at Patriots Place.
Thanks, Mike. And to dive into that concept and tell you a little bit more about what we're planning on doing, I'd like to introduce Tom Shea, our president, who's been with us for over 25 years.
Good evening. So I think pictures are worth 1,000 words, and we actually prepared a booklet for you to look at that talks about our other restaurants. We're started as Irish pubs, but we're fine dining, and we have 3 locations that late at night turn into entertainment venues. So we're experienced in that area. We realize it's only 12 hours a week that we do that. The rest of the time, we're very seriously about food and hospitality, and we're hoping that our conversion there will be a lot more family-oriented than what we saw. And we hope to do extremely high-quality music, as Mike and his partners are able to bring that in. We have a very experienced team with Desi, who's been with the Breyer Group for about 24 years, and is the regional manager that will be overseeing this area. But Greg will be here as the general manager, and we're starting to form that team right now with the hope that we would open somewhere late May, early June, if everything goes well. I brought a couple of pictures just to kind of give you a feel. You see Brian all the time, so I'm going to put it in front of you. That gives you a feel for what the exterior will look like. That changes what you see now. And you're going to see the infamous guitar in this picture, but you will not recognize it when you come in after we open. But the floor plan, thank you, Steve. The floor plan is very similar to what was there before. We are adding a coat room, which they never had before. We're taking advantage of their merchandise room to look out towards the stadium. We're completely refurbishing the inside to clean it up, make it lighter and a lot more approachable and attractive. So I think that's about it. I don't know if you have any questions for any of us.
Anybody on the board on anything that you've heard? I do have 2. Going to the music, is it going to be all different genres of music?
We're going to stick to mostly country, I think, as it was. You know, we're going to stay mainly with it. There'll probably be some rock and more heritage type rock acts. It'll probably come in, you know, in older rock bands, but mostly country, I think.
Right, that was a topic of discussion at my Saturday night St. Patrick's Day party.
I got you. Okay. I hope we answered it.
Well, once a year it'll change.
There you go, yeah. One other question, you had mentioned not every night music, so are you looking at Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, or?
Possibly Tuesday, Friday, Saturday is what we have planned right now. So either Tuesday or Wednesday for the name act that Mike was talking about. We believe that those nights of the week are more appropriate for that. They're earlier in the evening and let out earlier.
Okay.
But Friday and Saturday, we have a later night till both open.
Okay. Okay.
One other point I'll add too is that I was lucky enough to be able to meet with the chief of police, and he had mentioned Fox Cares. And I know Greg Springer, our general manager, has been interacting, so.
Yeah, he would have got to that.
Well,
Fox Cares cop in this town.
okay. Well, you can be assured that we'll be 100% behind
Good.
Fox Cares as well.
Good. It's a great organization, and it's very well supported by the establishments up at Patriot Place and some other establishments in town, so they do a lot of good things.
I'd just point out a couple of things. We're investing approximately $2.5 million in the space, and we expect to employ a minimum of 75 people, and hopefully, if businesses go upwards of 100 people at the site. Also, if you notice, there's a summary of their security procedures in here, which is very important, I'm sure I know to the town, based on the prior occupant but this is also very important to this company. And also, Austin mentioned it, but they participate in a lot of different charities. They run a golf tournament for different charities, and they participate in a lot of events, and they will be part of the town.
Anybody have any questions on the application itself?
Yeah, I have a question, it's more for Brian. All the legal issues with Toby Keith's have all been resolved? There was the injunction and,
Yes.
okay,
Yes,
so all that's
I
been
mean,
resolved?
the town's involvement in that has been resolved, and the folks who filed that injunction have pulled that away.
Okay, good.
Do you want to
Yeah, just, Mr. Chairman, just to follow up on that, actually, the group did a pretty remarkable job in the past several days trying to get that resolved, because I knew that was an important issue for us to address. One follow-up action that the board is going to have to address next week is, or 2 weeks rather, is to formally dispose the license of the Toby Keith. So that will be a hearing before you in 2 weeks. And that's the final step in that process.
Any other questions on the application itself?
I think the application, thank you, was very succinct, very detailed, in depth. I appreciate that. I wish you guys luck.
Thank you. Just to point out, we are seeking a new license for this premise, not the transfer of the existing license. That license
Right, so.
has a lot of baggage.
So just to further clarify this, we will be issuing the brand-new license that was part of the whole state legislation a couple of years ago that's dedicated for that space. In 2 weeks, when we vote to close or, remove Toby's from that license, we will get that back, and that'll be
Correct.
an all-alcohol license for the town.
Right, and then just to clarify further, the challenge is that you can't have two licenses in the same establishment. So
Yeah.
that, it's correct that they are applying for the new license, and that sort of takes care of that issue.
Yeah.
So that this last final step would be the one that just puts it to bed once and for all.
Yep, and the motion, if we go that way, is going to basically state that,
We'll address that issue.
yeah.
One question I do have, when Toby's came in, there was, I don't know where it stands now, but there was a extra police detail because of the bulk and dimension of the bars. Over time, that may have transferred into regional dispatch efforts. Is there any independent effort that the police have with respect to this square footage that's still on the books?
No, everything that we do now is through the community policing program. And, this group has met with Chief Baker. The challenges at the prior tenant had, it certainly has lessened over time, mostly because some of the volume has dropped off there. And in my work with this group, as I said in my opening statements, that it is incredibly important to us that this large venue be handled safely. We don't revisit any of the issues that we revisited or visited with prior tenants in the past. But the goal is to bring it back to the success that it once had. And that success, I think, is important to job growth. Obviously, it generates revenues for the town at the levels it was once at that, has dropped off considerably. So, we're all aligned in growing a business, but we're also aligned in growing it safely.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Chairman, I just will say that I've met with the group, the chief and I both met with the group several weeks ago, and I can tell you, of all the presentations I've seen, this was probably the most comprehensive one that I've seen in a long, long time. So I have to give them a lot of credit. They touched all the bases. While it was certainly a little complicated issue with the license piece, we figured that out. They figured it out more than I did, and I'm grateful for that because it makes it easy for the board to take this matter up tonight. But I do want to say that it was really well done.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Anybody in the audience wish to comment on this? Seeing none, make a motion to close the public hearing.
Move to close public hearing.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any other discussion on closing the public hearing? Seeing none, all those in favor? Okay.
All right, so for the aforementioned reasons, I have a rather lengthy motion to read. So just, based upon evidence presented establishing the public good and good convenience, motion to approve the grant of an all-alcohol restaurant license authorized by special legislation under Chapter 300 of the Acts of 2016, including the sale of alcoholic beverages on Sundays and certain legal holidays between the hours of 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. as authorized by MGL Chapter 138, Section 33B, to Foxborough Hospitality LLC doing business as Six String for the premises located at 275 Patriot Place, manager Gregory Springer. The grant of this license and issuance thereof, shall be contingent upon and not effective until the final disposition by cancellation of the license issued to the CRGE Foxborough LLC upon the premises located at 275 Patriot Place, either by voluntary surrender or the license holder, or by further action of this board.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Welcome to Foxborough.
Thank you for being here.
Looking forward to it.
Did the board vote also on the common victual license and the entertainment license? Or is that
Isn't it,
something you can do outside of the,
is it all encompassing?
is it all encompassing?
I think the motion, I think you're correct, Counselor. So we should just, the board should just take the motion
Okay.
to grant.
Yeah,
that
we might as well, just to be
Okay.
safe.
And the motion to include those.
So move to include the 7-day entertainment license as well.
And the
And the
common
common
And the common vic, sorry.
Okay,
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Now you're officially.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thanks for pointing that out.
I know.
Just before.
I don't know if they're clapping for them or clapping for Toby's being done.
Right. I think it's all of the above.
Yeah,
Small shoes to fill.
Well said.
yeah, I mean, seriously. It's not over for 2 more weeks. All right, we do have another public hearing that we're gonna get to. We're a few minutes late on that, and then I promise everybody we'll get back on schedule. Just to reiterify, in case somebody came in, the 9 o'clock agenda item for the fire station, we are postponing that. We will not be discussing that at all. So Leah, do you want to read the hearing?
Yes. The Board of Selectmen, acting as the local licensing authority pursuant to MGL Chapter 138, will conduct a public hearing on Tuesday, March 19th, 2019, beginning at 7:35 PM in the Gala Meeting Room, Town Hall, 40 South Street, Foxborough, Mass., on the application of a Section 12 annual wine and malt restaurant license, common vic, and modification of a 7-day entertainment license to include annual wine and malt service for Foxborough Regional Center for the Performing Arts Incorporated. Doing business as the Orpheum Theater, 1 School Street, manager Teresa Devlin. All interested parties are welcome to attend.
So for the record, I want to once again recuse myself because I'm a director on the board, and then sit on that side of the table to present, if it's okay with the board.
You want to just have everybody say who they are for the record?
My name is Paul Beck. I am the treasurer and clerk temporarily for the Orpheum Theater. I replaced, who did I replace as the?
As the treasurer?
As the treasurer.
And Christine Igo.
Christine Igo.
I'm Teresa Devlin. I'm the alcohol and the restaurant manager at the Orpheum.
And thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Jim DeVellis, and I'm acting here today as president of the Board of Directors for the Marilyn Rodman Performing Arts Center at the Orpheum. If I could, I know we were in front of you a bunch of times over the last year or so. I just kind of wanted to step back a little bit. It's usually myself or our director that's been here, and just kind of give you a little bit of a broader picture of what we are and why we're doing what we're doing, and then get into the application.
So I sit on the board with Paul Beck, who's the secretary, Rachel Calabrese, who's the vice president, is not able to be here tonight. And then there's about 20 board members. And when we purchased the Orpheum about a year ago, a little over a year ago, we wanted to surround ourselves with good people, and they're not typical white-collar, lot-of-money people. They're community people, blue-collar, people that work in the community. And our goal was to surround the Orpheum, one, to preserve it, so it's not housing or a dollar store. It's not on the historic register, and it was up for sale. So we wanted to preserve it, and we wanted to bring in some vibrancy to downtown. We wanted to bring in the arts and the entertainment and fill the downtown with a lot of good noise, and I think that's what we've accomplished over the last year. So I just want to briefly go through some of the members. Laura Cantfield's a member, Jared Craig, Stephanie Flaherty, Eve Ketty, Steve Katay, Cindy Haddad-Drew, Beverly Lord, Michael Levitt, Tony McDonald, Jim Politano, Lynn Powers, Carl Schuster, Jim Slattery, John Wagner, Linda Walsh, and Kristen Warriors. And a lot of them are here tonight to support. If you wanted to just stand up briefly, if who could make it. Not as many as I thought, but we got 5. A lot of people that you've seen around the community, and they've really worked their tails off to volunteer. We're all volunteers for this nonprofit. So we've owned it for about a year, and we've been in front of you a handful of times for single occurrence, one-day beer and wine licenses. Before I turn it over to Teresa Devlin, who's our manager, could you pass these out, do you mind, just quickly? So what I'm going to hand out is the events that we have scheduled for 2019. Right now on the books, well, last year in 2018, we had over 300 events in the Orpheum, and we brought in over 24,500 patrons through the doors. This year in 2019, being March, we have 285 events already planned for 2019, and you'll see on that list, you're going to see plays and birthday parties and movies, comedy shows, dancing, community variety show this weekend, art classes, game night, anniversary parties, Chinese New Year's, magic shows. We've got a relationship with North Cap Lodge. We have an ALS fundraiser coming up. We have somebody that talks to the dead. We have a medium coming up this Friday night. Downtown Business Groups meets there on Wednesdays. Scouts, we have the ecumenical concert, 2 concerts for all of the churches were invited into the Orpheum. We have a session on human trafficking, PMC Challenge concert. We have Shakespeare, and today we just got the antique movie projector that we were going to discard. We had somebody come in and refurbish it, so we're going to be having old movie nights showing there. So it's a true community effort that it's all volunteers. We have a few staff, Teresa being one of them, that over the year, there's so much stuff going on there. And these events, a lot of them are not paid. We open the doors up to the community, to the veterans. The bathrooms are open during events there, the JCs. And so what we wanted to do was focus on one manager for the beer and wine effort. A lot of these don't have, not even close to having beer and wine, but the ones that we do, we wanted a single person to manage that effort. So I'll pass it over to Teresa. She can introduce ourselves. Paul Beck wanted to say a few words as a member for the year as well.
All right, like I said, my name is Teresa Devlin, and you're probably wondering who I am. Just a little background on myself. My husband and I moved to Foxborough actually 28 years ago, and we lived here for 3 years. We absolutely loved this town. We were very involved in the Foxborough JCs, but when it came time to find a house, we unfortunately went to North Attleboro, and so we lived there up until about a year ago, and we moved back to Foxborough, which I feel like we are home, and we still are very connected with this town because we kept our friendships, and you know, we were always up on top of how Foxborough was changing and what it was doing. So I'm really glad to be back home. Secondly, I've been in the restaurant business off and on for the past, 30-some years. I've been tip certified for the past 3 years. I've worked in all types of different restaurants, catering establishments, golf courses. I work up at Blue Hill Ski Area. I've been up there for the past 5 years. So I do have experience in the restaurant and the alcohol service. But as far as the Orpheum, I'm just really, really excited to see what's happening in this downtown area. I know when my husband and I travel, we're always looking to see what's happening in the downtowns, not in the strip malls. So it's just exciting to see what has happened with the Orpheum in the past year. It's just doing so much. So when I was approached to help out as the alcohol and restaurant manager, I was very excited about it, and it's something I really want to help bring to the town, and I'm so excited about all the other businesses that are going to go into the town, and I really like to see when a town works together and all the restaurants work together, and we just work as a community, because I feel like I said, Foxborough is a great town, and I feel good to be home.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks. You may remember I'm part of Foxborough Cable Access and have been part of that, and there's a nice relationship between Foxborough Cable and the Orpheum Marilyn Rodman Performing Arts Center. We've installed some cameras there so that the events that happen on stage can be recorded, and not only for their purposes, but also put on local cable TV. But I've been a fly on the wall for at least 8 months now, and watching all the different events and the different people that come there. And I'm amazed. I've been a resident of Foxborough since 1973, but I've never seen so many people from so many different experiences flock to that theater and participate in the events that are there, from kids to adults to seniors. As Jim mentioned, the choirs and the different ecumenical concerts. The one thing that I think we're, as a board, interested in is providing as much hospitality as possible. And hospitality is the key word. We have the concession stand for popcorn and candy and junior mints and jujus, and it's a wonderful thing to have. But when we have an adult event, an adult evening event, they're not going to be happy with Mountain Dew and spritz. So having the malt and wine license is a very helpful thing to us. It helps us meet our monthly nut and expenses, and helps keep the lights on. So we're hoping that you'll go forward and grant us that license.
Thank you, Paul. So, and just to recap, we submitted an application. With the site, the floor plans are in there, and I believe the documents are in there. And one thing I didn't mention, I mentioned all the board members that are here, but in order to make this work, as Paul had said, we've got to make money. We're not there yet, to be honest with you. It's a nonprofit, and right now it's a below nonprofit. So we're struggling. With this board member, we have more than a handful of volunteers that are here now as well, that when you go in there, there are people that are not paid, but working behind the counter, working the aisles, working the websites and things like that. So it's a robust group, and we need this to move forward, I guess. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on the board?
Yeah, just going through the application and reading the comments from town departments. In the last application, there was some outstanding fire department issues.
Yeah, someone had brought that up. I don't think there's anything in this packet for.
No, there's nothing from the fire department. There's no.
Okay.
There's no notice from the fire.
I don't have the past comments, but what I do know, I think we're up to code. When we purchased the theater, one of the first things we looked at was down below, there was the foam. You all know the nightclub there. That's all been removed. We just spent $6,000 on fireproofing the curtains. We spent another $4,500 on the sprinkler system, checking the valves. The enunciator panel's been all done. It's all been zoned. So it is up to code, and we've invested. That was one of the first things that we did.
Anybody?
I'm good.
Teresa, you'll be full-time there? Or is it just gonna be,
I will be full-time, yes.
okay, so it's gonna be, like, a Monday through Friday type thing, or when there's events happening?
When there's events happening, obviously I will be there, and then other times just to follow up on just, alcohol ordering and monitoring it and that type of thing, and volunteers and just everything I have to do to keep it in things right.
So, this may be a question for you, Jim. The document that you gave us, like, out of all of those, it looks like 285. How many would be alcohol?
Yeah, not 285, not even close. If we have a Friday night and a Saturday night, usually there's alcohol or beer, a beer or wine served. I know Friday night we have something, Saturday night we don't, things like that. Laura Canfield just went through Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of plays, no alcohol, and it was geared towards kids. This weekend, if you haven't bought tickets, you should. The family variety show. I think we have a one-day liquor license for that if someone wanted to. Maybe I'm mistaken, but something that's on a case-by-case basis. A comedian might come in and want one and not come in if we don't have it. Things like that. But we've talked a lot about that because Teresa's going to be full-time hourly. So we're trying to figure out budget-wise where she comes and goes and when she has to be there.
Yep, okay. So with all of that transition, it's not like it's you walk into, Six Strings and there's a bar there and all that. So what happens with the alcohol in the meantime? If you go for a week and there's birthday parties and stuff, like, how is all that going to be secured?
You want to answer that, or I can?
Yes, it will be locked up. Refrigerators, it will be locked.
Okay.
It's not a destination place where you walk off the street and come in and have a beer.
No,
No.
and I wasn't even going there, but if there's a 7-day gap, and, I mean, it looks like with the new, or the latest proposed kitchen plan, it's like all right there as soon as you walk in. I don't see it anywhere else. But
Yeah,
right
it's
there.
out in the open as you come in at the bottom, but it'll all be locked, and if you wanted to open it, you can't do something unless there's staffed and it's open.
Okay. One of the other questions, I guess it kind of pertains to the common victual license and the whole restaurant, because in part of the application, it has the plans for the patio and then the other, so where are we on?
Yeah, so when we purchased it, our thought was we're gonna have a little patio, and someone to come in, you've got the 400-seat theater, but if you wanted to have a small group, what they call the green room to the side, there'd be a corner where 3 or 4-piece band could play, or acoustic guitar, and then we'd have like paninis or something like that. We priced that out between the HVAC and the upgrades and the handicapped and all that stuff. It's between $50,000 and $60,000. So we put an end to that. We're calling it phase 2 if it ever happens, once we get back into the red or the black, one of those.
Whichever's good.
Whatever's better. But it's on the plan. It may never happen. It may be 5 years, but right now it's, we don't have the money for that, so.
And we were wondering also, is there a minimum regulation on the type of food that you do need to have in order to serve beer and wine?
I know we went through it when we did the whole brunch stuff, and it's, I think it's definitely more than juju beads and popcorn.
Yeah,
so.
phase 2 will deal with that, but for phase 1, it's definitively set as prepackaged food there's no cooking stoves, there's no dishwasher. So if you look at the Board of Health comments, if you serve beer and wine, it has to be in plastic silverware that you throw out, because we don't have all the stuff for, similar to what they had for the Legion. Not a lot of food prep. It's, somebody wants a pretzel or a hot dog or something like that. It's all pre-done.
Yeah. So prepackaged would be the popcorn and the candy?
Yeah.
Okay. Do we know if we have any other establishment that, because Legion's gone, but I always remember them having a full kitchen upstairs, so I don't know if that was part of it, and I think VFW might as well, and I don't know if that's all part of the whole property.
I spoke to the Pauline at the Board of Health, and she said it, maybe I said the Legion, but it was the VFW maybe. They don't have full kitchen, so it's pretzels and beer and things on the counter. to go with the beer. Peanuts type thing.
Right. And I'm going to be bringing in more,
Fishing game.
I'm going to be bringing in more prepackaged foods, like hummus and pretzels that are prepackaged, nachos and salsa, they're all prepackaged, all those types of things.
Okay.
And we have, I mean, there's no table set up, there's no, it's, you bring it and you sit at your chair and you watch a movie or you watch a show, and then you come out, so we're not looking for anything extravagant.
Not an actual bar?
No.
Thing.
Mr. Chairman, I think the difference between the VFW and the Legion, though, is that they're club licenses. It's a little different establishment, which you can be a little bit more lenient on in that situation.
Yeah, club licenses definitely are different.
They're different, so, but what is interesting about this is that this license that's being requested is for a restaurant license, for a wine and malt restaurant license. And I haven't heard anything, I haven't seen a menu tonight, I haven't seen anything as far as food, other than candy and
That's what
popcorn.
we're proposing, in prepackaged.
Yeah, it's going to be concession
Okay.
types of food.
So as far as an annual wine and malt license, I mean, is there a different variation? Is there an annual wine and malt? Is there an annual wine and malt restaurant? Or, I mean,
It's up to the board's discretion, but I've not seen one without a menu since I've been here. I can only speak to the time that I've been here, but every place typically has at least a menu of food and offerings other than concession type items.
Yeah. One of the things that I just want to point out that's in from our town, Board of Health, fire, there is this is actually, Mike Kelleher's mentioned in this, and it was, I believe, Nick Riccio. And I did follow up with Mike, because just to verify that with all the fire safety codes, and he said that he's been working with you guys.
Sure, yeah, it's
on
been a
that.
good relationship.
Good. But Nick had mentioned in this that in the event the license is granted by the Board of Selectmen, I would respectfully request the license be held until the certificate of inspection has been issued by myself, which is Nick, and Chief Kelleher.
Yeah, we expected that, that's standard.
Yeah, so, I mean, I definitely want to just make sure that, everything from a fire perspective and a building inspective. And I think the only comment that Pauline had, and this was probably prior to the new kitchen plan, was we're still waiting for his kitchen plan review. So I guess my question on that is, on the common victual license, can we even entertain that without a kitchen? Because isn't that all geared towards kitchen-type stuff?
Well, what we're proposing doesn't require a kitchen. We do have a sink, and that's what Pauline referenced in her letter for the popcorn. But there's no kitchen because we're not preparing food. It's all pre-prepared, and we bring it in. So I think that's the on phase 2, she's
Yeah.
waiting for a kitchen plan, but
Well, the application we have for the common victual license says, description of the premises adjoining to the main theater, proposed restaurant, approximately 30 seats, please see attached.
yeah, but then there was a letter sent on March 14th addressed to the selectmen and yourself saying, this is what we're doing. And I think Pauline checked, Pam checked with the ABCC if we could, in fact, do this. And the email back was, yes, you could. So then we sent this letter in to recognize that we're not doing the full kitchen right now.
So that's what the March 14th
Yeah.
letter was referencing?
Yep. So that supersedes the old kitchen.
So, with that being said, what do we do on the common victual license? Do we,
Mr. Chairman, I may be able to offer a little bit of information on that. In speaking this morning with, following up with the fire department, inspections, Board of Health, I asked about, what's required on that, the common victualizer. In inspections, Nick told me what's needed is a 3-section sink. And, you know, unless everything's going to be disposable, which it sounds like it would be, you know, otherwise it would be plastic cups and that sort of thing. From Board of Health, you know, they said what they would expect is if it's not going to be prepared food, prepared on site, that it would be catered food, and that it would be catered food whenever there's an event serving alcohol, meaning that the caterer brings the food, serves the food, and removes all food, so there doesn't have to be anything washed on site to ensure sanitary, sanitary eating area.
Okay. So with that being said, that kind of clarifies that up, and that's the intent, right?
Yeah.
Plastic cups, and if you're gonna do anything other than the prepackaged stuff, and I don't know if you would entertain and bring catering in, but it would all be.
That's exactly what we're, if there's an event, a caterer comes in and brings it out, like Mr. Johns had said.
Okay. One thing I would recommend if we go forward with this then, especially if we want to listen to the building inspector and the fire chief and, you know, pending their thing, maybe we just get a new common victual license written up, so we're not voting on the one that we have in here. You know what I mean? Unless we can amend the common victual license right here and now.
I think the applicant has to do that.
Yeah.
You have to actually amend the license request, because you're requesting it of the board.
So if you voted tonight, you could vote contingent upon a new application.
Yeah, for the
and
common
we'll
victual.
submit that
Yeah,
at a later
yeah,
date. So
just
we
so
wouldn't have to
it's,
come back.
so it's a clean one and it all flows.
Yeah, we can certainly get that into you.
Mhm.
So I think those were my only questions I had. Does anybody else on the board have any questions? Leah? Awful quiet over there.
Everything that I had, you guys have gone over.
Okay. You good? Dave, you good?
Want to open up to the public?
Oh, yeah, sorry, public hearing. Anybody from the audience like to weigh in on this? Seeing none, motion to close the public hearing?
Move to close the public hearing?
Second.
Motion made, seconded, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All right.
All right, so, move to approve Foxborough Regional Charter Center for the Performing Arts Incorporated doing business as Orpheum Theater on-premises annual wine and malt licenses, the revised, upon the revised common vic and 7-day entertainment application.
Hold on, is that the right motion? Because the common vic isn't revised yet. So I think we do the license and then we do the common vic separate on this one.
Okay, so you want me to just do the license, not the, how about the?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So move to approve Foxborough Regional Center for the Performing Arts Incorporated doing business as Orpheum Theater on premises annual wine and malt license.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? The only thing I would like to add under discussion is contingent upon final inspection and sign off by the building department and the fire department. Motion made, seconded. With that added, all those in favor?
Aye.
All righty. And now we'll just,
So move to approve Foxborough Regional Center for the Performing Arts doing business as Orpheum Theater, common vic and 7-day entertainment license contingent upon the revised application.
Second.
motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for your patience.
Happy to.
Yes.
Gonna free up all the time. We don't have to have one-day licenses anymore. All right, so, back to earlier. So 7:10, Complete Streets Prioritization Plan.
We have another public hearing.
Oh, we do?
Public hearing, yeah.
Oh, I'm
third one
sorry.
down.
Tanner Stuffsman here, he's just a volunteer to be.
Yeah.
Oh, another one,
public
okay, let me bring
Yep.
it up.
He's a quick one.
Yeah, so I'm going to open this next public hearing, and then we're going to just take one other thing, a quick appointment to the Conservation So let's open the public hearing.
The Board of Selectmen will conduct a public hearing on Tuesday, March 19th, 2019, beginning at 7:50 PM in the Gala Meeting Room, Town Hall, 40 South Street, Foxborough, on the application of a Class 2 used car dealer's license for Ali Hodro, doing business as Al's Motor Company, 105 Main Street, Foxborough. All interested parties are welcome to attend.
All right, Al, so what we're gonna do is, we open the public hearing, we're gonna just take a quick appointment to the Conservation Commission, so you wanna come up for the Conservation Commission appointment? Thanks, Peter. Sorry about that. So close. All right, how are we tonight?
Very good, yourself?
Good. What do we got, Bob?
Okay, as I think everyone knows me, but those that don't, I'm Robert Boyd, Chairman of the Conservation Commission. Eric Nelson retired after serving 9+ years, and so we had to search for a replacement. We interviewed a number of candidates, and we selected Peter Astanoff to be nominated for the next person on the committee.
All right. How are you, Peter?
Very good.
Good.
Good evening. So, Peter Tanisoff, I live in Connie Drive, resident of Foxborough for 30 years now. Did learn about this opening on the Conservation Commission. Having lived here as long as I have, I've been involved with town sports, similar to a lot of you guys on the board right now. Kids are growing, and I'm knocking around the house looking for something to do and give back to the community. After looking at some of the other options that are available to serve the town, this one seemed like a good fit. I have a science background, love hiking and being outdoors, and as a resident of the town and seeing over the years through a lot of our town meetings how important water is and how water issues come up during town meetings, I thought this would be a really good place to put some of my effort and time and try to give back to the town.
Excellent. Very good. I appreciate it. Anybody have any questions on the board?
I've known Peter for many years through sports and scouts, and I'm thrilled. No hidden agenda with Peter.
Thanks, Jim.
Appreciate it.
All right. A motion?
All right, move to approve Peter Astanoff, Conservation Committee, sorry.
Tanisoff. Peter Astronaut.
Astanoff.
Thank you so
I
much.
even said to Jim, how do you pronounce his name before the meeting?
I told her astronaut. Thank you.
Yeah. Blame it on Jim. Conservation Committee as member for a term expiring on May 1st, 2020.
Second.
Motion made, second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, sir. Just let everybody know who you are, for the record.
Hi, my name is Ali Hadroj. I've been resident of Foxboro since 2000. I own a business down on 105 Main Street, the Foxboro Sunoco station. I also had a business in Medway, another gas station, and I had a license there for used car license, which I go to the auction and buy cars and ship overseas to Africa, but my brother lives there, and I help him out in making some money and selling cars there. So I do have a business here, but I'd like to apply for a license here since I sold my business in Medway. I don't have a license for the auctions anymore. I don't intend to sell cars at the location. I don't want to do that because I'm not in the retail. I just want to buy and ship out of the auction directly to the port, which I did for 6 or 7 years now.
And that was your same model in Medway?
Yeah. Used to be a mobile station there on 107 Main Street.
Okay. Anybody on the board have any questions on this?
Just if I could, a logistical question. So you've got the pumps and the canopy over it, and you've got some parking spaces, looking at your building to the left, and a couple to the right. How many spaces do you have that, so if a patron comes in and needs to park versus a space that's given up for a vehicle?
I will not park cars
He's
there.
not going to park.
I'm not gonna park any cars there. I go to the auction, I buy the cars, I send the transport ticket straight to the port.
Oh, so there's no on-site
parking there,
activities,
no
no
selling
storage.
cars there.
I thought you meant they'll be there, but you're not selling them,
No,
they're just for a duration.
Once in a while, actually, I have a dealer license from Rhode Island.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I drive a car with the dealer plate on it. Sometimes need the plate to pick up another car, I leave my car for like a couple hours and I move it and then I, you know,
Okay, I
I don't
misunderstood.
use, no, I'd rather have the space all for the customer, for the gas station.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a similar question, but now that you said you live in Foxborough, it makes sense why you're filing for the license here, not somewhere else, so.
I just built the house on Fisher Street.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, the building commissioner has evaluated this license application, is fine with the application, provided there is no storage of vehicles on the property. So if you want to condition the license, I think that's entirely appropriate.
Yeah, and there were a couple of points that I was gonna bring up on that Nick recommended that he was still waiting for several documents from you. One of them being business certificate.
From Foxborough, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't have the business, so I didn't apply for business certificate, but
Okay.
I will definitely do that.
Yeah, so I would just, I mean, I understand how you're gonna do it. I know other people that have done it the same way. So I would just, if we move forward with this, stipulate it as long as he complies with what our building commissioner wants. I'm fine with it. Any other questions?
Nope.
All right. I'll make a motion.
All right.
Oh,
we can end the
public
first,
hearing,
so
sorry.
Move to close public hearing.
Anybody in the audience want to discuss this? Seeing none, now we can close the public
Okay,
hearing.
move to close public hearing.
Second.
All right, motion made, seconded. Any further discussion on closing the public hearing? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye.
All right, move to approve Ali Hodraj doing business as Al's Motor Company, Class 2 used car license application, subject to no storage of vehicles on the premises at 105 Main Street, and to satisfying the concerns outlined in the note from the building commissioner.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? Under discussion, you're just fully aware what Nick wants you to comply with?
Definitely.
Okay. All right. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Chris, now you're up, Chris. I don't think we have any more public hearings.
Right on
Let me just check. Oh, maybe no.
Just be kind to him now. Been patient.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
All right, so we have in front of you the next step in the Complete Streets program. We began with a policy adopted by the board. We had a draft plan, prioritization plan put together by TEC, an engineering firm. We had input from DPW Planning Board, also held a public meeting back in January to get additional input. The original plan had close to 60 projects on it, too large. We narrowed it down to 40. We went to Planning Board last week, got their buy-in, and we're looking to move this forward and actually submit it to Mass DOT. They'll take a couple weeks to approve it, and then we can actually start submitting projects for funding. The first round of funding we'd be eligible for would be May 1st, and each round of funding awards projects up to $400,000, so that includes all construction costs and construction engineering costs as well. So you have a list of 40 projects. They range from sidewalk reconstruction, intersection reconstruction, so it could be a road diet where a crosswalk is 100 feet long. Really, you don't want them that long because it takes too long. There's too much exposure there. So it could be pulling the curbing in from the sides. They could be improving ADA accessibility. So where there's a vertical curbing at a crosswalk, the curbing would be removed, and the ADA compliant sidewalk a crosswalk would be put in at the sidewalk. It also addresses gaps in sidewalks. If you go Cassett Street, you get to a certain point and the sidewalk just stops. So we would close in some of those gaps. So there's a list of projects here. Really, we just wanted to bring it to the board so they could see it. There's no real, there's no motion or vote that's needed to move this forward. but we did want to make sure that we got buy-in from the two boards, the planning board and the Board of Selectmen. I know there are a number of projects that are not on this list. Some of these projects we will do outside of this funding source. Some of these projects we may do with our own funding sources, whether it's internal staff or a year or two from now, we may be able to, we'll probably start freeing up some of the road money to actually start addressing these sidewalks as well. There are some other concerns. One was brought up earlier tonight, where I actually have a CAD file in my email for East Belcher Road to get rid of some of the ledge, the trees, widen the road, repave it, and if possible, we'll look at putting a sidewalk in there as well. So those are things that we are doing in coordination with this. This is not the only thing we're looking at when it comes to sidewalks and this program. So I guess if there's any questions, if there's concerns, there is still time. It hasn't been submitted yet, so there is time to throw one or two other projects if the board sees fit, if they have something that's not on here.
I did have two quick questions. You had mentioned at the very beginning, you know, there was 60 and then you went down to 40. So what was the criteria to go? What did you guys use?
Some of it, we looked at the actual condition of the sidewalks that were proposed for reconstruction. One of them that was on the original list was Oak Street. Oak Street, when the highway supervisor, myself, Roger Hill, looked at the existing condition of Oak Street, it didn't seem like it was something that was needed under this plan. So we pulled off some of those reconstruction projects. We left on some of the ones that address the really bad sidewalks, main routes into town, and then around the school zones as well.
Okay. And my second question is the list of 40 that's in front of us, is it in any specific order, like we're doing 1, 2, 3, or do you have flexibility in this list to?
We have
bounce
flexibility.
around?
There is flexibility in the rankings.
So this isn't like a priority list, or is it like?
So we really looked at the first really top 10 as what we'd like to see over the next 3 to 4 years start to address. Like I said, each project will get awarded up to $400,000. We can combine some of these. So if there's something that's 180 and one that's 220, we can put those together in a submission and hopefully get 400,000 and be able to do both projects in the same construction phase.
Okay.
As soon as we're done with construction, we can apply for the next round of funding. There's one in the spring and one in the fall. So potentially we could get funding twice per year for these projects.
What's maybe while I'm scrolling down, what's the total cost? It's not added up here. So what's the total cost of all of these projects? Do you have it off the top of your head?
Well over $10 million.
Yeah. Okay. So it's going to take a
closer to
long
15.
time to knock this down.
Yeah. And like I said, that's why, you know, and it is, we know that the sidewalks, you know, we're neglected, like a lot of the other utilities. So we're starting to address those now. We'll pick at them a little at a time and get what we can when we can get them.
To add further perspective to that, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, it says we spend about $10 million a year on road improvements between Chapter 90 and the money that we get.
Probably $1 million a year on.
But yeah, about $1 million a year. That's what I meant, $1 million a year. So that means that we're at a point now where we're getting close, probably in the next few years, right, Chris? We'll be hitting the benchmark of where we want to be with the road program.
Right.
And then we'll be in a more of a maintenance mode, which means that we won't spend as much on the construction piece and more just on maintenance, crack sealing, and some overlays, some minor overlays. So which means that we'll be able to spend more money on sidewalks and other pieces.
That was one of the things I was very thrilled about this list, to see so many sidewalk projects on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a lot of the ADA issues that we have, we've started addressing with our own resources. Our highway department is gotten really good at resetting curb, putting in the detection pads, pouring concrete. So as we know that they're there, as people have issues with certain sidewalks in town, we are addressing those kind of one-off as we need to.
Someone specifically reached out to me about the Taylor, specifically between like Walnut and Stratton. You know, those kids are in kind of a walker area. There's telephone poles in the middle of the sidewalks. There's like gullies that go down. You know, just prioritization for those. And someone had even mentioned we might have our own sidewalk paver in town approved years ago. And are we using that?
We do use it.
Okay,
We'll typically use it for an overlay.
okay.
But we have used it, actually, Leonard and Sherman, when we did those sidewalks a couple years ago, we did that
Okay.
with the town sidewalk paver.
So around those schools, any kind of prioritization when I hear years, like what, what's the timeline of starting some of those kind of higher priority?
You know, we can, like I said, we can take this list one project at a time, and if there are, you know, if something like that comes up, and that's where we want to see the next project submission go, then we can do that, or we can do it internally,
Okay.
so.
Chris, who's making the determination of what the priorities are?
So it was, you know, the initial list was put together by the engineering firm. You know, they've done probably close to 50 of these complete streets within Massachusetts, looked at all the different towns and put the initial plan together, and then they really hand it off to the people in the town to say, you know, what do you actually see as the needs, as the priorities? So myself, Roger Hill, Sean Giat, who's the highway supervisor, like I said, we had the public meeting. We did have, you know, a dozen or 15 or so residents come in. A couple things got added to the list that weren't on it based on that public meeting. We took some of the things off based on what we saw as not a priority. And really, that's where it stands right now. Planning board did have a look at it last Thursday night. Did not change anything on it. So this is really the last step before I submit it to Mass DOT.
Any other questions?
Just on some of the figures, and I love the rows and columns and the estimated costs and the schedule. So when you see a column that says $700,000, and then the one next to it says funding by complete
By other.
streets. Yeah,
Sure, yep.
By $300,000. Who determines of a $700,000, only 300 is gonna be funded by another source? Is that an equation that the state gives you?
No, so what, the majority of what you'll see there is the max they will approve per project is $400,000.
Okay,
So
so
anything
that's why some
over
of the lower ones
400
are fully
Right.
funded.
Anything less than 400 is fully funded by complete streets. Anything more than that, the difference would be would need to be made up by the town.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So a question then, when you go to apply, do you just go to them and say, we want 400,000 and this is our whole list and we're gonna knock it off? Or do you have to specify, we wanna do these two projects and it's gonna be $375?
So when we submit, we'll submit for a project.
Okay.
With an estimate of, you know, if we look at project number 1, Mechanic Street sidewalk reconstruction, project estimated cost is $315,000. You know, that would be a project submission.
Okay.
So they would approve it, or depending on who else is applying, how much money they have from one year to the next.
Okay.
Right now, they seem to be funding quite a bit of projects through this program.
Okay.
You never know when they're gonna pull the money away.
And with that being said, with your regular schedule of whatever you're gonna do, will you try to prioritize and knock this list off too? This isn't just gonna be for this funding, right?
No, I mean, right, we will look at, kind of use this as our baseline for everything. The East Street, Cocassa Street intersection, it's listed here as project number 3. We have survey work that's been done on that intersection. We're gonna do the design on it shortly.
Yeah.
Again, if that's something we can handle within an existing budget or with town forces, then we will knock that one off the list before it would come up, you know, 3 years from now.
Okay.
Another quick question. So will you always try to maximize that 400,000 too? So if you've got a project for 315 and you got another one down the road, down the list at number 31, that's 60. Will you always try to, puzzle them together and maximize?
Yeah, that's my goal, yeah. Yeah, if we can combine them and get as close to 400,000 as we can, that's what we'll do.
Each time, yep.
Do we need to move up one of those cheaper ones to right below the number one? So that our top two have to match 400,000?
Yeah, well, I did go down, I saw number 31 was 40,000, yeah.
But I'm like, that's pretty low, you're gonna fall for that. We're gonna move it up.
So just, there was, like you had mentioned, an issue from a resident on Belcher, so you said you kind of have that on your CAD file, or?
Yeah, so with East Belcher Road, as you come up the hill towards Mason Place and Spring Street, it gets very narrow. There's some very large ledge outcrops, there's some large trees, there's telephone poles, and the right-of-way is narrow, which lends itself to an issue. We can't just put a sidewalk in. There's a lot of prep work that goes into it. It may require easements. We try not to ask National Grid to move telephone poles because that never goes well. So
That is on your radar.
it is, yes. Each Belcher, it has been, knowing how big of a project and how involved it was gonna be, it's kinda hit the back burner the last couple of years, but, it is on the radar for the next year or two.
Okay. All right, so, like you had said too, you don't need anything from us on
Nope.
this?
So, sorry if I'm asking a question that it's just me not getting it. So what is the timing probably for the first few of these to start?
So the first submission would go in May 1st.
Okay.
If
Of
it
this
gets,
year.
of this year.
Okay.
If it gets approved, we'll do construction this summer.
Okay.
Once construction's complete, there's another application process, I think it's October 1st.
Okay.
What I was referring to earlier is that we can probably speed this up a little bit. If we got more of our own money, we can start using some of this as well. So, but this is all new money. This is in addition to what we're already spending, the $1 million that we're spending, so effectively $1.4 million.
So what's the turnaround from submission to when you hear? Do they let you know within 30 days?
Yeah,
or-
I think by June 1st, we would know.
Okay, so that October deadline, if you got awarded that, would there still be time in the construction season?
Potentially.
Okay.
If the weather's nice.
If not, it'll roll over until the
It'll roll
spring.
into the spring. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, just back to how they look at them, I hope, looking, obviously, the more densely populated areas, the schools in particular, that,
Sure.
those areas
Yep.
that are really bad.
Definitely.
And safety issues.
Okay, all right,
Okay.
thanks.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Good job.
All right, next up, Sage School Charity Wine License. Good evening.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Danielle Fish. I'm the Director of Advancement at the Sage School, which is located here in Foxborough at 171 Mechanic Street.
Lisa Downs, I live at 25A Edwards Road in Foxborough. I also work at the Sage School.
Lori Drayton. My son attends the Sage School, and I'm on this year's planning committee. I'm also a business owner and a resident here in Foxborough.
So we're here this evening. We have submitted an application for your consideration for a charity wine permit. It would be part of our annual gala, which is an event we hold once a year. It is our primary fundraiser for the school. We are a K-8 school, which is a private, nonprofit, independent school, just as I said, just right down the street. The permit is actually to help us facilitate a wine wall, and if we're unfamiliar with a wine wall, is literally a wall with wine on it. And we sell only those items, and we actually sell a cork, which guests are able to purchase, and then they would receive a wine of value of either $25 up to $100. So it's sort of an opportunity. So it's a purchase there at the auction. It's supplementary to help us with the revenue. It does occur at the very beginning of the event, so it probably takes about 90 minutes in total. Usually we found that items like that done at the beginning of an event finish up pretty quickly. And again, it is an opportunity for us not only just simply for the revenue to benefit the school, but it also offers our guests, which is certainly a wide variety of families and parents that attend, that are at different price points, and allows everybody an opportunity to participate, not just in the larger silent auction items, but the event itself is from 6 to 11 at the Lakeview Pavilion. And again, it does benefit the Sage School, and it's a typical dinner auction, silent auction event.
Anybody have any questions on this?
I guess the only question that I would see is, I know how a wine well works, and typically, the wine cannot be opened on premises the evening of the event. I didn't see that spelled out specifically in here in the motion, so,
That
just
is-
making sure that that's your understanding
Yes,
as well.
thank you for asking. That is correct. So everything that's purchased, they do the cork, they literally pull the cork from the bowl, and then they identify which one belongs to them, and it stays there on the wall until they leave at the end of the evening. So again, they have the fun just as they arrive, they proceed with the evening as intended. The wine actually can remain in the wine wall itself, tagged with the guest's name, and they pick it up on their way out the door. So it won't be consumed, poured, enjoyed until they get home.
Yeah, and there is a letter, because that was my concern too, there's a letter from Lakeview to the town. Because one of my questions was, how does this affect their liquor license? But if Lakeview is reaching out to us saying that they're good with it, I'm assuming Lakeview has done this before, and my question to you, have you guys ever done this before?
We have not. This is our first year doing so, so it was a little bit of new territory for us, and we just wanted to make sure we had everything buttoned up, and we have a good working relationship with the Lakeview. They're well-established, and we just wanted to make sure that we did everything we did as users of their facility. So our guests will enjoy their facility as a cash bar. So nothing interferes with any profits that they could make.
And I very much appreciate you guys going through the right procedures. There's a lot of permitting things out there that sometimes get overlooked, raffle permits and stuff like that, so I appreciate it.
Sure.
Anybody on the board have any other questions?
Nope.
Make a motion, Leah?
Yeah, move to approve the Sage School application for charity wine license for annual fun gala on April 27th, 2019, at Lakeview Pavilion in Foxborough.
Second.
Motion made, seconded, and any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Good luck.
Great, thank you very much.
All right, next up, Planning Department Summer Intern, Paige.
Paige Duncan, Planning Director. I'm here seeking permission to hire a summer intern to support the Economic Development Committee and the Planning Department. I submitted a memo outlining what our primary goal would be for this intern. It would be to get the economic development website up and running. We've been working with Sandra Dandrade on that, Amanda and I, and actually Bill as well, and getting a mock-up, and now we're to the point where we have a draft almost ready to go, and so she told us the fund's about to begin, we have to populate it. So the goal is to have a website that, potential companies wanting to come to town or even homeowners, moving to town. It's basically information on the whole town in a one-stop shop. It helps cut through some sort of ambiguity on things and also provides a great snapshot to visit. So in order to stay competitive with other communities who do have these type of websites, we're looking to get this up and running this year. And hopefully with our new website, that's going to help us do that.
And we will do a presentation of that when it's fully
Yeah,
operational.
we're excited about it. 'Cause we don't even have, a lot of times the state will send an email asking, do you have, this size land area with gas service located with X miles of Route 95? We don't even have a good inventory, so that's another thing, not just building it, but actually going out, inventorying the available properties on Route 1 and other commercial areas, and making sure we have it, so either the little guy or the big guy, when they call me and they say, do you have anything? I'm able to give that answer, otherwise it's saying, oh, well, look on LoopNet and good luck, so we really want to, be business-friendly for our growth nodes and make sure that we are professional in that way, so I'm hoping we had success with our intern last year. I might have mentioned, I'm trying to remember what the number was, 70-something respondents. Overwhelmingly phenomenal candidates. We did end up with a graduate student in planning, and it was just a great resource. I know he misses us to this day. He wants to come back here and work. But we would be getting someone new to make sure this would be a focus on economic development. And there is a fund, the Economic Development Fund. As I say in the memo, presently there's $7,000 and some change in there, but I believe the Six Strings just paid another $5,000 into that account, so that will go up. So I'm hoping that you will agree to let us get our intern.
Was that a requirement of Six Strings to do that?
Yeah,
I think so,
anytime
yeah.
the license changes, because that was one of the statutory licenses. And actually, all the licenses now
Yeah.
effectively do that.
was wondering if we got a $5,000 check from the Orpheum.
It's already closed.
Too late.
Half an hour ago, you missed it. If I was chairman, you'd have the check. but-
Statute of limitations up.
We'll take an IOU.
Yeah. All right, anybody on the board have any questions on this?
I guess my question, just if the budget's here for this, and it's not anyone that's gonna be here permanently, why do we as the Board of Selectmen have to approve it?
Because it's EDC money.
Okay.
It's under your,
It's
EDC
under-
is
under
a
your-
subcommittee of your group.
Other-
Okay,
So-
and I looked in the budget book and I didn't see it, I mean, it's obviously a big book, so I
It's a
didn't
fund,
see
yeah.
that anywhere there specifically, so.
It's not listed as a budget, it's a fund that's set
Okay.
up, so it wouldn't be listed in that sort of in the budget itself.
Okay.
It's just a separate funding source.
Okay, so besides this email, though, this all information in here is correct with the
Yes.
dollar amount and everything?
Right.
Is this will be the second year you've done this, or has it been 3?
Well, second year that I've done it like this. When I came here, there had been an intern, and she came back, I think, for a few months right after I started. But this is the second year of sort of this program, which is, as having been a graduate student, I mean, this is something great for a student, and especially that's why I realized, kind of rushing it, I realized last year I was here on March 1st, and I have a great relationship with all the colleges around, and I know that these students are starting to think about their summer now. And it's great, like for Matt, the gentleman we had last year, I think I mentioned, he was a Navy vet. He was going to school full-time, and this allowed him to actually work all day, go to school at night. And it was, for him, it was a great opportunity to also help a student, and that allowed him to really give us his full attention. It was great. So it's kind of a win-win.
It's also important to point out that the previous person before Matt was a person who actually wanted to be a planning assistant.
Yes, yeah.
Actually got a job right out of Foxborough.
Right out of, exactly.
Out of
Yeah, in
Foxborough.
fact, I just filled out another reference for her.
Yeah.
So she's on the move. She's doing very well
Doing very well.
professionally. And she didn't even have a master's at that. She's a
that's right.
bachelor's, so this is a
It's good to see
good
that.
opportunity.
All right, any other further discussion on the board? Want to make a motion, Leah?
Move to approve request funds for a summer intern in the planning department.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, 8:25 agenda item, I'm almost back on schedule. DPW Board of Water and Sewer Commission. Hi, Chris. Long time no see.
Do you think it's worth mentioning the fire station again, where we're getting close to 9 people?
Yeah, so I'm gonna, good point, Leah, made this announcement several times throughout the night. If anybody's here for the 9 o'clock fire station funeral home, we are not gonna be discussing that tonight. We're gonna postpone that, and that's a TBD. Ran into some complications late in the afternoon, so we're not gonna be discussing the fire station proposal tonight. All right, gentlemen, how are we? So, this has been kind of like a topic of discussion amongst a bunch of people, so we just kind of wanted to get an update from you on the new sewer billing, water billing, so.
So you want to kick it off? I've had the flu, and
Okay.
I'm not doing too good right now,
All
but.
right, you could be dismissed. Sit in the corner.
And I had the shot, too.
So, the water department and sewer department has looked at a number of different things over the last couple of years. One of the things we've been working on very diligently has been our unaccounted for water over the last few years. We've been in contact with DEP and with Sean Osborne down the end of the table, with OSD Engineering Consultants, Bob Worley, our water superintendent. We have been looking at how to fix that problem. We've done a number of different things. We'll outline some of them and really get to, I think, the heart of the conversation about, where the billing is going in the future. I know that's kind of been the hot topic around town. So I think I'm going to turn it over to Bob and Sean just to outline some of the things we've been looking at and working towards, and then we can get into, why we're going monthly billing.
So, as Chris said, a couple of years of working on bringing down the unaccounted for water. It's a rather large task. We want to make sure that we know how much water is being produced, and there's a three-way test that they've been doing to calibrate the meters on that side. Then comes the harder side, which is where's the water going, right? You have 6,000 accounts, industrial, commercial, residential, institutional, that aren't always billed, schools, that sort of thing. Tracking that water usage, what becomes a problem, which is true for many departments across the state, is that they're billing quarterly. And quarterly doesn't mean you're billing the entire town quarterly, but in different sections quarterly. And so you get out of phase. So you know how much water you are producing between January and December, but how much water is being used, that's out of phase. Some is being recorded in the fall, and some is being recorded in the following year. So one thing looking at is with monthly billing is to bring it into the same calendar year. In addition to that, they're also looking at testing, calibrating the large meters in the system, because most of the water that's used is used with your larger customers. So that's being done at an accelerated pace. Also continuing to replace the residential meters. Also looking at when the data is put in, that a new meter is put into the system, the billing system, that all of the zeros are carried, right? So we're not losing a zero somewhere along the way. So it's a multi-tiered process to track down water usage, because regardless of unaccounted for water, we want to make sure that people are being accurately billed for the water they're using.
So why don't you go into some of the things that we've committed to with DEP to be able to get into compliance with water loss?
Right. So the large meters, 3-inch and larger, those are being tested by an outside contractor. This year, all of the 2-inch and larger are to be tested by end of next year, and then following that is the 1-inch, and then following that, it's all of the smaller meters, the 5/8 and 3/4-inch meters. The goal there being that you want to make sure that all of the meters are properly sized and are measuring water usage correctly. So that's one thing there. Also looking at different ways that the water department can conserve water, both with the users and in terms of what they do on the production side.
Plus, we've done a major 2-year leak detection program and repair program. Last year, we repaired many leaks in the system, but there are still leaks in the system that are not trackable by the way it's done today. It's done with sound today, and sometimes if it's a lot of pipe joints, and we do have a lot of old pipe in the system that has lead and leadite joints, it can leak without you hearing it over a test machine. Part of the relining of the asbestos cement mains that we've been doing cures that problem, and we expect to have a solid result from Beach Street. We've got the Beach Street main fully relined right now. What needs to be done now is the services and the mains going into the subdivisions are going to be transferred over to that main, and then we're going to abandon the other two mains in place. We won't have to worry about them anymore. DEP has imposed some very rigid requirements on us, and we needed to submit to them a program of the things we were going to do to alleviate the water loss, and we've done that. And part of that is the monthly billing, because what the monthly billing does, in addition to getting us on cycle and getting it easier to determine how much in, how much out, it also provides a much quicker read on when someone has a problem. We can gear our computer system to recognize what an average monthly use is for a given meter and have a flag that will kick out at the end of every month if that monthly amount goes up over a certain percentage. And then they can be notified immediately that they have a leak in their system and they need to get it checked. Some good examples, and the commissioners would be glad to talk to you about these. We've had people go 3 months and 6 months with a leak, and then they get a bill for $10,000 for a regular water bill. And they shouldn't have to do that. And we are not allowed to work beyond the curb box, but the only way we can determine how much water is being wasted in the house is through the meter, because that's where we measure it. So the meter reading has to be done fairly frequently to identify leaks like that. And there are penalties for not following through on what we've committed to with DEP. And one of the penalties is they can reduce our withdrawals. And we're already under reduced withdrawals anyway, which they've been doing now for a good long time. Bob could tell you a lot about that. And we can't afford to lose withdrawals right now. Some of our well production is off, but it's because of the wells themselves. And we're working on that problem, but that takes time. And it takes a lot of money. So this is a strategy that we worked out. We believe we need another girl down there anyway, because Cheryl's the only one in our department that knows how to do this stuff. And if she's out, we need somebody to back her up. We tried to do that with part-time, and it doesn't work that way. It's a high concentration job. We have to have somebody there, and they can't be disturbed with phone calls. And we only have 5 girls in the office, so if we have 1 out on vacation or 2 out on vacation, a lot of times they have to pick up the phone and take their mind off what they're doing, and then get back on. And this is a complex situation. It's something we really need to do, and it's been needed for a long time, and it's going to get better over time, but we've got to cure the problems we have now to avoid the loss. So if anybody has any questions, I think we'd be happy to answer them.
Anybody on the board?
I have a bunch of questions, but.
Just a general, we've heard this presentation before, right? Because you were in front of us. What am I missing? This is the same thing? There's a cost to it and there's a benefit.
Right.
Why are they here? Are they trying to convince us, or are there issues I'm not aware of?
No issues, just, it's definitely been a hot topic, so I just wanted to revisit it. One of the questions I had too was, you had mentioned checking and testing the valves, so if there's a leak in the road.
No.
If there's a leak in the road, how is that detected? By checking all those valves?
We have an outside contractor that comes in once, actually now it's twice a year because of the way we are. They do a leak detection of the entire system, which right now that's about 126 miles. So they'll come out, they'll identify where the problems are. He can only hear so much. We did have an example on South Street where we knew that there was a leak. Because school was still in session, we couldn't fix it at that time. We had to wait till school vacation, fix the problem, then they found a bigger leak. Because the sound diminished after they repaired the first one, they could then hear the second one. So it's an ongoing process.
A lot of the system, a lot of our system is not as much now, but a lot of it was dead ends. We've been on a real program to close the loops when we can, but there are still some really long dead ends in town. Good examples, East Street, going down to Windsor Drive. That's a 6-inch cast iron unlined main, and it's a dead end. And someday we're gonna have to loop that, make a deal with Mansfield, go down through to Maple Street, and then cut through to Beaumont's Pond and close that loop. But that's a big job, and it's an expensive job. And if you're losing on a dead end, it's very hard to find them, very difficult. We've closed a few. We've closed, we closed a really big loop up off of Beach Street by coming through from Panis Park to Willis Lane, and that helped a lot. It really stabilized that whole system up there. We've closed a couple others too, and these are all programs that we're working on routinely every day. Try to cut down on the water loss, improve the quality of the water in the system. This is just another step in that process.
Anybody have any other?
Well, I do, but Leah, you go first.
So I will say, my kind of 10 months on the board, this has been the item that the most people have reached out to me just against it. Just, it's a nuisance, and the town people that I've heard from don't seem to support that. So I just will put that out there. My two-part question, number one, how much water are we losing through water main breaks, and, does that come into play? And then number two, certain populations, home repairs are expensive. So let's say a leak is detected in a home, and we know that there's a leak. What are we doing? How are we able to enforce, that someone even has the funds to be able to take care, of a leak? Because paying a little bit high of a water bill, if they don't have a, $10,000 water bill, something, kind of more in the more average area, it may be cheaper for them than a costly repair to a leak in their house.
So on the leak on a service on the house side, if it's leaking outside the house, they're not paying for it. It's not going through the meter, so they're not paying for it.
I thought you guys said that you want to be able to see leaks on the other side of the meter. So we'll see them, but how do we have any way to know that?
Not necessarily, on the other side of the meter, it's really the reading part, where if the toilet's leaking, if it's running constantly, if there's the spigot left on the outside of the house because they've got the garden hose run through the garden. That is every time we read, we know if that's up or down. So if that spikes in a 90-day period, it shows. It's from $100 bill to $500. If it's a 30-day read, it goes from $100, or it'll go from $25 to $70. So that increment is a lot less. So if somebody's leaking on their side of the meter, we'll see that by reading.
No, I get that. So say my toilet's leaking really bad, and my neighbor's toilet and Dave's toilet, and we're losing all that water. We're identifying the leaks, but then someone could not fix it. So how does that?
It would get very expensive for you
Right.
not to.
Okay. Sometimes the repairs can be kind of expensive though too. So I'm just thinking it may help us identify it then, but then on the flip side, we have no way to really enforce that an identified leak is then being addressed and we're not losing water.
Once it goes through the meter, it's accounted for. So we know that water was produced, we know where that water went.
Okay.
Once it gets past the meter, if your toilet's running, if your faucet's leaking, you're paying for that water. And we know where that water has gone. That doesn't factor into our unaccounted for water.
Okay.
Because we know it went through the meter, we're reading that as water used. And you're paying for it as water used, whether you actually use it or not.
So as long as it's accounted for, then, if they keep
Right.
leaking $30 versus $70, that's
Right,
not what this is meant to fix.
right.
In the long run, what we want to do is, we want to have no meter in town more than 10 years old. We're a ways off from that. It's still a long way to go, but that's the goal of almost every water department in the state, to try to have the meters recycled every 10 years. And part of the reason for that is the technology is moving very quickly in meters and in reading. There are some new developments in cloud reading right now that are very interesting, where you won't have to have somebody going around with a vehicle like we do to read the meters. We don't know how far away we are from that, because we're solving bigger problems in the system right now. But as soon as we get these big problems out of the way, that's the time we start looking at those issues.
So I guess I thought we were doing this in part to see a bill go up and to be able to identify a leak, but it sounds like that's not the case, so I don't see how quarterly versus monthly billing is helping with identifying.
It doesn't help with the water loss, but what it does is it helps the customer to identify that they have a water loss, because a lot of times people are living in a house and they can't hear the leak either. And There are multiple examples. I'm sure the commissioners would be happy to tell you about this, what happens at meetings. People come in all the time, and you gotta help me. Well, there are ways to help them, but we can only, give them a number of months to pay off or something like that. This will reduce the billing to a third every month instead of 3/3 every quarter.
Which one could say will make the leak less detectable because it's over a shorter duration versus over a longer duration.
Oh, the leak will still make the same amount of noise, but because it's lasting 3 months or 1 month.
Yeah, but I may not notice my bill going up $10, but I may notice it going up.
But we will,
Okay,
because we're reading. We're reading every month.
okay. And how about we're unaccounted water, not knowing as much as you guys know, I think water main's breaking.
And that could be. And part of this is we need to perform what's known as a water balance, where we know exactly how much we produced. If we match that with how much we have sold or accounted for, we can look at that difference. And if it's getting bigger, we know there's more of a problem. And if we make some repairs and get smaller, we have a way to actually see what we do is accomplishing the goal. Without it, you just can't tell if we fix this one leak, are we all set now?
And that goes back to what Bob said earlier about the 2 leaks in the same area, right? If they had not gone back and done another leak detection survey, then that leak, instead of being there for an additional 3 months, would have been there for an additional 9 months to a year until they come back to the annual. So you want to continue reducing the noise in the system. So you're doing the balance, as Bob said, so we're checking your house as well as its houses to see what's water's being used, checking that out, and then continuing to do the repairs in the system to continue to reduce the amount of unaccounted for water.
And that will reduce the amount of water main breaks, because a leak is different than a water main break.
Well, we're doing things to reduce the amount of breaks all the time. Relining the pipe up on Beach is a good example. That's an asbestos cement pipe, and they have a 50-year service life, and just about every foot of asbestos pipe we have in Foxborough is older than 50 years. So we know we're gonna have to line a lot of that. And the program's expensive, and it takes a lot of time, but it's working. Another thing is, we did some background information on where other water utilities across the nation are going. 75% of the water utilities in the country are billing monthly. I have a water bill in Florida, it's monthly billed. It's the same as my electricity, same as our electricity here, the same as our gas here, the same as everything else we do. It's billed monthly. And it's a good way to track. The systems are set up for it. There's no special software required. We just need we need to implement it as a part of the program that we submitted to DEP and agreed to. And that's the reasons we're going there.
Through the chair. So, as a background, did the DEP pick out Foxborough because they see an exorbitant amount of water use?
Yes,
and
water loss.
Water loss.
Yes.
Okay, so, but it seems like to me, we're sort of comparing apples and oranges here. It seems like you're saying we're going to monthly billing to try to help the individual homeowners.
No, that's not the only reason. As we outlined for you, we need to get our readings in cycle with the outgoing. In other words, we got the incoming water coming in that's metered every day at every water well and every plant. But we don't have an annual or a monthly or a quarterly that matches that. So we have to mathematically do a determination to see what the other side looks like, and it's guesswork. It's not real numbers, and we want to get away from that. We want to get to a solid, what goes in, what goes through, what comes out, and this will do that.
But I don't understand what the difference between 12 times a year or 4 times a year would be to that cycle.
Because right now, a third of the time is read from November to November. Another third is from December to December. Another third is actually January to January. So for 2/3 of the town, the readings do not match the calendar year. So their consumption doesn't match our production.
Why don't we just make them those match up? Because if we can't handle the volume, I don't know how we're gonna handle monthly. So if you're gonna say it's because they can't handle the volume, that, like, I don't think I could sit behind a desk at Comcast and, you know, process monthly billing for everyone that's got cable, and half the town's probably got Comcast and half's got Verizon. We can't handle quarterly tax payments in town. We outsource part of that. It seems to me that having one person, you know, take the billing and up it by 75%, it seems like, I don't know how one person's gonna do that. And, you know, I know that the salary's gonna be covered through water rates, but there's pension, there's health benefits. You know, I think there's a lot more to it.
Water rates pay for all that.
Pension and health benefits, everything.
All of it.
Yes.
And you feel confident that one person can handle this entire town?
Well, actually, it would be two persons. We
So
have one
someone's
person
doing it
now.
quarterly though now, so in essence, that person's job would double, and then another person would have the other
Once we
two
cycle the
covers.
meters onto the monthly basis, it'll be relatively easy to handle. Remember, we're reading now all the commercial meters monthly, not the individual homeowner meters, but all the commercial meters are read monthly.
So could we cycle this to the quarters to match up with the calendar? If that's the problem?
I think it'd be very difficult to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things Bob said a few minutes ago was that the water balance is critical here. We've submitted a plan to DEP. DEP's accepted that plan to reduce our unaccounted for water. One of those tools is a monthly water balance, a monthly water audit. So we know day to day, month to month, year to year, how much water we're pulling out of the ground. We don't know how much water at the end of every month is in the system, is getting used, is going through the meters. So unless we read every meter every month, we will not have that information. And if we are going to read the meters every month, we're gonna bill every month. The system cannot process those readings and not bill. The software does not do that. The way the software is set up, and Sean has checked with Munis directly, who is the software that we use, if we read those meters every month, we have to bill. The software will not do anything different.
Is there a different software?
Not that we're gonna use. That is the software that we have.
It's another expensive process.
So, bottom line, I know, is this being done? Meaning, I didn't see that we have a motion to approve the monthly billing. Is
Sounds
this
like we've
what you're,
committed, yeah.
is this
So
what you're doing?
This is something that is up to the discretion of the Board and Water Sewer Commission.
Right, so we have no say in the matter.
They support that, and that, right. This was we wanted to come explain why we're doing what we're doing, so the public knows. We know it's been a topic around town. We know that people have said to you, to the board, that they have issues with it, they don't want to see it. We've sat before advisory committee. We sat last year, we did it again this year. We've explained why we're doing this. This is really a public education because they don't come and see us at the Board of Water and Sewer Commission. So we really wanted to get this information out. We know we're on TV. We know people are gonna watch it. We know it's on the agenda. We wanted to come and let you and the public, the residents in Foxborough, know why we're doing this.
So you've been in front of the advisory committee and they're supportive of this?
As far as we know, a couple of people just didn't want to see a paper bill every month, which you don't need to get a paper bill every month. You can sign up for e-billing. And then they were hands up in the air, yep, I'm good. I haven't seen their vote on the budget, but as far as monthly billing goes, it's not up to them either.
So that may have been part of the confusion, I think, is I think people, the public, and even I thought that there was some sort of say or vote, or, and it sounds like this is done, this is promised to the DEP. So I think, had we said that from the get-go, there probably, maybe would have been less questions, people thinking it was still under debate.
That's not true about AdCom. I wouldn't say that. Can't speak for the whole committee, but.
Yes, Steph, if you want to say something, you gotta come up to the microphone.
Steph McGowan, 19 Rhodes Lane. AdCom is really not approving of this. We haven't voted on it yet, so I don't want to speak for everybody, but we've heard it a number of times. It's been last year, this year. I just wouldn't, I'm not asking you to go along with what AdCom's saying. I just don't want you to think that we're in approval of it, because as far as I know, we're not. So you guys make your own decision, but it just wasn't a fair statement to make, that AdCom
In
is.
fairness, Steph, I don't think anybody here said that.
Oh, I
There's
think-
been no vote taken at this
I
point.
said,
What-
I
no,
don't know what the vote, I know there were some of the members that just didn't want to see a paper bill every month.
Oh, maybe I misheard Chris. I thought you just, when it was asked, I thought you said that
No, I
we.
didn't.
There were other members that very clearly at the end of the discussion said, is this our decision? And the statement was, no, it's up to the Board of Water and Sewer Commission. So they said, why are we even talking about it?
Yeah, but I think we can't stop you from doing it, but I think the financial aspect of the budget is what we're gonna recommend. And I don't think that is something we're going to recommend. We haven't voted on it yet, so maybe that's an unfair statement for me to say too, but based on the conversations we had, I just wouldn't say that AdCom recommends this. That's all I want to say. You guys are gonna make your own decision, our committee's gonna
We
make ours,
really
but.
don't have a decision. They're their own
Yeah,
board.
but your decision will be to fund it. You can't stop it, but
We don't fund
No,
it.
they don't.
It's all
make a decision
funded
on
out
it.
of water.
it's in the budget with a position on their side and a position on the town side to do this.
It's an enterprise fund.
The enterprise fund, the funding for that is coming from them as well. Even if it was on the town side, it wouldn't, the funding was coming from them.
I understand that, but the town will vote to spend that money, wherever it's coming from.
No,
It's
town meeting will vote
Yeah,
on it.
that's what I mean. It's a recommendation from us. It's not a
We
vote from
won't-
us.
Right.
We will vote independently as citizens of the town.
Yeah, exactly. But your board and our committee will make a recommendation to the town for that budget. And that's my point. We're not gonna decide, but you're gonna make a recommendation for the budget, and AdCom's gonna make a recommendation for the budget. I just wouldn't say that it's being received by AdCom, that's all. Thanks.
Any other discussion from the board? Have you guys had a lot of people calling, questioning?
Not very many. Very few calls.
Maybe that's a clarification for the public and the paper is, we are getting a lot.
Yeah.
At least me personally, I can't speak for the rest of you guys, but I would say overwhelmingly, this has been the topic I have heard the most about. So, maybe letting people know where they can voice their concerns and where they can, send those concerns.
70 Elm Street. That's where we are.
All right, anybody here tonight from the audience want to talk? You want to just come up to the microphone?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I expect the observation was correct that somehow, since you guys are the town fathers and mothers, that people thought that that was the place to go. These are some very nice people who are very well-intentioned, and I've been to their meetings, and I think in the times I've gone, there was like maybe one or two other people from the community there. Through no fault of their own, they fly under the radar, or at least have done. I hope after tonight they won't do, because I don't approve of this change. It's not about a paper bill. It's about an intrusion into people's lives in general. If and I guess I understand, because I was going to suggest, why don't you read the meter quarterly, and then, you know, you can bill, or read the meter monthly, and then you can bill quarterly. But Chris gave the answer to that. He said they have some kind of software, and that's just not going to change. That's an issue for me, because I think we're weighing importance of people in the community versus software and where they want to spend their money.
I think we
Yeah,
have an
and
investment.
I listened to, you know, to Roger, who is one of the nicest people I've probably ever talked to in the community, who's a town official. And, you know, Roger says, in the long run, we're going to do this, in the short run, we're going to do that. I happen to live off of Beach Street, so that's part of my piqued interest in what's been going on over the last couple of years. We had 2, if not 3, water breaks up there in that old line. And I don't know how much water was lost there. But it seems to me that maybe it would have been better to try to fix a lot of those major issues, like Beach Street and other of those old lines, before jumping to doing something like this. I thought it was a little disingenuous when I read that in the minutes, I think, of January 8th of this board, that in the presentation it was said that this would be better for senior citizens like myself because, you know, it wouldn't be as big a hit if you paid it monthly. What the hell, you still pay it, you know, you still have to budget for it. So to me, that was, you know, it didn't make sense. It seemed like kind of more like grasping to justify something that might be tenuously justifiable. So the concern is, as I understand it, all the way from the pumping station to my meter, and then there's a further concern from my meter to, you know, where it goes into my house to my meter, and then after that, what happens to my toilet and my bathtub and my shower and all the rest of that. I'm not sure I'm clear on this. Where are you trying to find the problem? Is it after it goes through my meter or before it goes through my meter?
There are 2 different problems.
2 different problems.
And which one is this solving?
This solves the problem of cycling the readings to match the same cycle that we use for the production, so that we can compare apples to apples every month
Before you meter.
before you meet.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Engineer, I appreciate that.
And if there's a problem,
So after my meter, that's my problem anyway, right?
It is, but it'll give us an opportunity to give you a quick heads up.
So have you had a lot of people asking for a quick heads up?
Boy, have we ever.
Really?
Every
Because
person,
I follow your requests. I follow every request you guys get.
just about everybody who
For a
comes in.
rebate,
Uh-huh.
you don't grant many, and you don't get that many.
The Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners, if it goes through the meter, we have to bill for it. But we also give people a chance to pay it back over time if they get a big bill or something like
I
that.
guess they have to ask for it then, Roger, because I had
They
one
do.
once, and nobody told me I could have paid it back
They
over
do.
time.
They have to be paid in full before they ask for it, too. That's called an
Transparency, put
abatement.
that out there so people know that in advance. I think that's just plain
That's called an
old
abatement.
courteous
and-
transparency.
And if you're not paid in full, you can't ask for an abatement. So you have to pay in full first, and then ask for an abatement. And then what they'll say is, well, we'll grant you the opportunity, we'll incorporate this into your water bill over a period
The
of.
indulgence of the board, I'd like to say that you guys need to do something better in the way of a website. You need to do something better in the way of.
Because this isn't a water and sewer meeting either, so, I mean, if you have those kind of concerns.
Okay, so I have
definitely
one
bring it
last
to theirs.
question, if I may, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman. So, let's say that in the month of August, my, usage balloons by 500% or more. What are you gonna do?
we'd be knocking on your door to let you know.
And who are you gonna employ to do that?
One of our staff. When we routinely, when we see accounts with extremely large bills, we go to their house and knock on the door and leave a note if there's no one home.
So you don't see an increase that in the summertime and into the fall over winter?
Yeah, but you have a period of years for people who live in a house that you can see what they've been doing.
Yes.
And so if during the summer they go up, sometimes that's just normal watering in the summer. But if you spike, like you suggested,
Yeah.
that's how do I say, an anomaly. And an anomaly will get a notification.
Yeah. You're quite right, Mr. Chairman. I'll come and call on you guys at a later
Thank you,
meeting and
Dennis.
make my suggestions. Thank you very much. And I'm
Mr.
opposed
Chairman, can I just say one thing here, because I think it's important to put this in a little bit more perspective. And Dennis, I know you'll appreciate this, because Dennis and I appreciate dealing with the facts, and I've known Dennis a long time. One thing that you should consider here is that this is a utility, and what do utilities typically do? They bill every month. Your light bill, your cable bill, any other bill that you typically get from a utility is a monthly bill. And what's good about that is exactly what they're saying, that you're able to compare month to month your usage and how much, and you compare it from year to year as to how much that usage is worked. If there's a real major issue, you'll be able to see that pretty significantly. And you'll be able to be on the phone to them, or they'll be on the phone to you.
Bill, are you
letting
saying
know.
that everyone isn't like me? They don't have a spreadsheet on all the utilities?
All right. Thank you. All right.
I don't know how you do that, Dennis, but that's.
Any other questions from the board? All right. Thank you guys for coming out and explaining it in detail.
Thank you.
Please let everybody know when your next meeting is. More than welcome to use the television sets if you'd like. All right, just to reiterate again, we are not going to the 9 o'clock agenda, the fire station, that's been postponed. More to follow on that. Next up, 9:45, reappointment of interim finance director and town accountant. Bill?
My recommendation stands, Mr. Chairman, to reappoint Christine for 2 more weeks.
Any further discussion on the board?
No.
Leah, you want to make a motion?
Move to, let me just get the date, or move to reappoint Christine Dupas as interim finance director, town accountant through, is that April 2nd?
April 2nd.
Yes.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. Jim?
I'm voting opposed for the reasons I said before.
Okay. So 4-1. Next up, CIP recommendations. So last Saturday, right? Was it a week ago
Saturday, correct.
was the CIP. You want to walk us through that?
Sure, so, last week ago Saturday, last Saturday, we held the annual meeting of the CIP committee. We met starting at 8 o'clock in the morning, went through several meetings with town departments, town clerk, the information services, municipal buildings, joint public safety, school department, water and sewer, and DPW, and went through their requests to in recreation, and also we had a new one this year that was actually dealing with the common, which came under municipal buildings, but was actually a new request. The committee did, I think, a pretty good job of listening to all the requests and considering them very succinctly. As we all know, every single year, there's never enough money to go around for all the requests that are made. So we go through a process of elimination and go through that and rank the various projects based upon a numbering system of 1 through 5, 5 being the most important, 1 being the least important. By doing that, we conclude that each person votes on that process. We then calculate the final scores, and then we come up with a process of trying to fund each of the various items. It's relatively easy to fund the fives, all the fives, because those are the ones that are most critical, obviously. So those are the ones we want to get to. It gets a little bit more challenging when we get down to the 4s and the 3s, because Clearly, those are ones that still need consideration, but may not always have enough money. So this year, we came up with a process where we got down to a funding mechanism where we funded many of the requests, but we weren't able to fund some, and those are noted in the documents that are before you tonight. With respect to the funding mechanisms, many of the water and sewer items are funded, obviously, through, because of revolving funds, so therefore that's funded through the rates themselves. We used a total of $984,213 in free cash. We used $50,000 for mitigation, which was mitigation fund, the board will recall, is from the Chapter 40, the Chapter 40B project that was down on Route 140.
Do we have an estimate from Roger on what that neighborhood is gonna take to make whole?
Yes, I don't have the exact estimate, Chris, but I did confer with him again today, and he said that there is enough funds to take care of the issues that he has down there, so he was confident that he'd be able to fund that.
That he has, or that
He
the
has.
neighborhood in general have?
Well, there's $150,000 that's been dedicated to the improvements in that neighborhood, and he thinks that he'll actually have enough money and more than that, enough to address the needs that have been asked for. The only challenge is there's a couple trees that may need to be moved, and whether or not, and the question will come down to whether or not the neighborhood wants the trees moved so he can possibly put a sidewalk in. So that's gonna come down
Moved or
to.
removed?
Removed. They're gonna have to be removed because they're in the way of actually setting the sidewalk. So that's something that's gonna come down to further discussion with the neighborhood, but the funding is there to address that. $1,394,000 in water receipts, $240,000 in sewer receipts, $238,777 is for the meals tax, and that's to help fund the road projects, and $650,000 from Chapter 90 money, which comes from the state to help fund our road projects as well. So the $50,000 that was identified for mitigation was actually targeted to be used for improvements to the common. And I'll just say a few things about that, because I think there was general agreement from everyone in the room, every member of the committee, as well as everybody in the room, that we need to do something with the common. The common has not spent, we don't have any significant money, town money, spent on the common in many, many years. We've done repairs on things, and we've limped along doing things and keeping things running up there, but the only significant money that I could recall that's been spent up there was to redo the flagpole, and that was actually done through fundraising. So it was actually done with town funds to do that. So we actually, if this conversation actually started through the thoughts of having improved decorations around the common during the holidays. And it's a great common. It's obviously the focal of the community and some focal point of the community, and something that we all identify Foxborough as like Foxborough with. And I think it's important that obviously we spend some money on it and improve it, because it's been a long time since that's happened. We estimate, though, that with all the work that needs to be done, that this would have to be done in phases, because this is about $150,000 improvement that we would have to make to upgrade the lighting, the electrical systems, and sidewalks, and landscaping, et cetera. That number has not been finalized, but it's certainly one that we think is reasonable. So what we've done was at least identify funding so we could get the phase one done, which was to put the electrical in, upgrade the electrical system. All the electrical in the common is actually direct bury, which is not really up to code to today's standards. We would have to use, we put conduit in throughout the entire common, so that if in case a wire goes bad sometime during the future, we would actually be able to re-pull a new line through the conduit without creating a significant problem there. The light poles themselves is a future consideration, though what we would like to try and do it as much as we can in this first phase. But the lights on the light heads on the lights themselves is a fairly expensive proposition, and something that we would have to take a little bit more time to evaluate and come up with. Certainly we want something that stays with the historical character of the community, and something that everybody is consistent and feels that is consistent with the character of the common. So this $50,000 is one that was one that was given a lot of consideration by the committee because it was a new request this year, but certainly one that nobody argued was certainly in need. So at the end of the day, we were able to identify the funding that was in the mitigation fund, which is mitigation funds that were identified for the town, for a town-wide project, not for any specific project, but for a town-wide project. And that funding was, there's about over $70,000 left in that account that could be utilized for that particular expense. So that was the feeling amongst the committee members. The committee went through the list that you see before you and voted on it unanimously. They felt that the debate was a pretty healthy debate. I think those that were in attendance felt there was a pretty good process, and that we were able to come up with a plan that made good sense. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anybody on the board have any questions? One question, and I see Heather's here, and I'm gonna just throw this out there. So with the amount of the 150,000, and 50,000 is gonna get kicked in, one question, do we think phase 2 will finish it all? And has there been any consideration to every other time we've done something in the common, kind of fundraising, or, have somebody adopt a poll or to try to raise money?
We did try to do that. We did go through the historical already, because that's where everything starts. What, why are you pointing?
Yeah, come up to the microphone.
So the group that's been getting together to go on over this has been getting together for like over a year, and we did think about trying to fundraise in the beginning, but basically it came down to, it's one thing to ask people to donate for a flower bucket or picnic table, but basic infrastructure is kind of something that the group felt was the town responsibility. The lights that the Historical Commission chooses, they range from about $1,500 to $10,000. The ones that we came up with, which are similar to the other ones in town, are like $3,000 or $4,000 a light. It's kind of hard to ask somebody, do you want to buy a light pole? We need 24 of them.
You didn't ask Doc?
Anybody who we would gladly take donations, but the group as a whole kind of felt like the common was something that basic infrastructure, like adequate lighting, was not something we should be asking businesses and citizens to chip in, especially when it's, 24
Quite honestly,
lights.
it's hard to argue that point.
Yeah, no, I wasn't, I know
No,
every
we did
other
think
thing-
about it,
Okay.
trust me, we've tried everything, but really it comes down to, you really can't say to somebody, do you want to donate so that we can have proper electricity? It just,
Yeah, okay, all right.
went against that.
Yeah, just quickly, I know I made the kind of unfair statement when I said the town doesn't invest in the common, we don't spend money. And Roger was there and he kind of corrected me. We don't spend funds on it, but part of this 50,000 to get the electricity, Roger Hill and the DPW stepped up and they said it's not enough to do it, but the DPW will
they'll
do the
help you.
trenching, the backfilling, the landscaping, similar to what they did to the flagpole and with the picnic benches.
Right.
Correct.
Labor is not in this number, but we couldn't do this without the DPW, so that,
Oh,
I wanted to
absolutely.
recognize that.
And they do the best they can,
They
given
do.
what they have up there, and obviously, there's a lot of maintenance that goes into the common itself every year, which they do a great job on. But at some point, it's really the focal point of the community, we should spend some money on it. And it does make sense to do that, and we should beautify it as much as we can.
Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, thanks. All right, anybody else on the board have any questions on this?
I just wanted to thank Cable Access for showing that one on TV. It's a long meeting. Took some long volunteer hours, but it was nice to be able to drink my coffee at home and watch that whole meeting.
Well, that was actually started last year, so and I think it's a good way to have the conversation, it's a good way to let people know what's going on. I think it actually reduces the amount of question that goes on at town meeting, because people see it.
Right. We can just get it to the advisory committee and the water and sewer, and it does help if people
It
can
does
see
help,
it.
I think it does
absolutely
help, I agree, I think it should be televised.
Okay, thanks for everybody that took their Saturday as well to spend on that. All right, next up, Selectmen's update. So I just, again, want to thank Leah for coordinating the scouts coming in tonight, Mike for taking them on the tour of the building. It's always nice to see the kids getting involved and seeing the scouting program going.
Great bunch of guys.
What's that?
Great bunch of guys.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I was talking to them because I noticed two different numbers on their shirts, so they're the two packs that are in town, numbers are dwindling, so they're merging, so that's a good sign too, that they're gonna come together. And again, shameless plug, pancake breakfast, Sunday morning, we are in middle school. I don't even have a scout anymore, but it's a good opportunity if people haven't gone. So a couple things that are gonna be coming down the pike, we've gotten some requests. One of the ones has been, to join Mansfield and other towns on plastic bag policies at stores. So I know we've all gotten the emails and stuff. So I did reach out. I want to thank Amanda too for putting that in the updates of how Mansfield went about doing it. Talked to Pauline a little bit, so there'll be more to follow on that in future meetings. I don't know when. I'll have to kind of regroup with Pauline and go through the procedures, but that would have to be, I believe, Bill corrected me, Mike, a town meeting vote to enact that.
It would have to be a bylaw.
Yep. So that will definitely be something that we'll be looking at going forward. The other thing too, we did get, as a board, a notice or an email asking us to consider the parking on Route 1, so that'll be a future probably agenda item. We'll have
It will be a discussion and then determine in a public hearing on it.
Yeah, public hearing, that
If you
was-
decide to go forward and amend your rules and regulations, you'd have to hold a public hearing to do
Yep,
that.
so that'll be a public meeting. So anybody else on the board have anything for selectmen stuff? All right. Bill?
All right, so I was away last week, so I'm grateful for the fact of being away, so thank you. And most people didn't bother me, which was great. So I appreciate that too. So thank you, everyone, for allowing me to take that week off. There was, before I left, went to the stadium on Friday before I left for the Trick legislative update, which talked about more regional legislation that's been going on. Jay Barrows and Senator Feeney were in attendance for that and updated everybody for the region. There's going to be another legislative update from the MMA on this coming Friday over in Mansfield for anybody who'd like to go. It's a breakfast meeting. I think it starts at 8. If anybody wants to, can attend. And later in the afternoon last Friday, I spoke at the MAPD planning directors meeting again at the stadium, which was 55 planners from around the state. We talked about economic development and things that we've been working on for the past several years, and a lot of the major accomplishments that have been done throughout the town in cooperation with a lot of folks. So it was a very good meeting, really well received, and people really enjoyed that venue as well. So I just want to also say that in April we'll be having a SEMRC update again to let everybody know where things are progressing. We're still on plan to start the regional dispatch center on July 1. That's our plan at this point. And it will be at this point, it will just be Foxborough and Mansfield. The other two communities will join us over the course of the next year. So we'll be still operating on a regional basis. Temporarily be operating here in Foxborough until the new facility is done. They're working on the new facility now, and we'll be giving you lots of updates about how that's going to progress and how that's going to be.
And that's a joint meeting with our board.
Joint meeting with all
and
4
theirs.
towns, correct.
In Mansfield
In
again?
Mansfield. I think it'll be in Mansfield. We're going to finalize the date this next week. All right.
I think we have it down as April 10th, so.
Yeah, the location, I think we're going to finalize. I apologize. I meant to say the location.
We can host them here.
No, the time, rather. And then I think that's all I have for now. There is a couple other things we're working on, but not ready for prime time yet, so I'll keep you updated.
Okay. Mike?
Okay, 2 things. One, we have recently concluded the hiring process for our new assistant treasurer collector, and she will be starting on the 25th of this month. So another critical hire and fill in that department. And I just wanted to mention that soon the town manager evaluation process will begin. We'll be sending the self-evaluation to Bill, and then his self-evaluation will go to each of the 5 of you individually, so that you can do your individual evaluations and send them back electronically. And then the grades will be, it'll be composite scores in each of the following areas, and I'll read them to you. Similar to last year and previous years, the last 4 years. The categories are leadership and staff effectiveness, planning and organizing, communication and community relations, problem solving, innovation and decision making, budget financial management, customer service and service quality, personal, professional, and organizational integrity, cross-departmental organizational management, and then sections on prior year accomplishments and objectives for the coming year, and then sections for comments for self-evaluation, and then comments from each of the board members. And then what I will do as the Director of Human Resources is I will provide those composite scores, which are just the average of what each of you supplied, and then the composite comments, which are a summary of the essence of the evaluation, and provide those to the chairman of the board, similar to what you've seen in prior years. And I just wanted to present that to you just as as we get ready to start that evaluation process.
One of the things I reached out to Mike and said I wanted him to look at what is out there, what is the best process. And Mike, you want to just talk to that a little bit?
Sure. So what has been done here, what our last assistant town manager, HR director, brought with her 17 years of municipal HR experience, is the best practice in municipal HR. And then what I shared with you on board docs is a legal opinion that the process that was followed and the way that it was shared publicly in this forum is the legal way to do it. I know there were some questions last year. I did watch the meeting, as well as went back and read the minutes of the meetings during this time of year. And what was being asked was, that all of the individual evaluations be provided publicly, and that's not actually legal. That so what we're doing is we're evaluating Bill like we would evaluate the rest of the public employees here, with the exception that his average scores are being made public and become part of the public record, and the comments, which are the essence of the board's comments, are being shared with the board. But if we were to share all of your individual evaluations, what we're doing is we're making public his personnel file, because these evaluations are part of his personnel file, and we can't do that legally. So the legal opinion I shared with you from
Where is this?
It's under the assistant town manager's update.
Yeah.
from the attorneys at law from Merrick O'Connell, was an opinion that I shared with you.
So I would just like to say that I welcome the opportunity to sit with each of you individually, if that's of any help to you during the process. I'll provide you my self-evaluation, and then following, if you want to take the opportunity to meet, I'm happy to do that. In fact, I welcome that, so that we can actually have a dialogue, because board members change, as we all know. And certainly, everybody has different perspectives on things, and so I just want to make sure that the perspectives that you each have is something that we can continue to work with.
So, if I could?
Yep.
So my question last year, and if you went back and looked at it, Mike, was, at the conclusion of that, I was somewhat disappointed in the process. And then I think we discussed, we were gonna either revamp or to discuss it. I didn't expect it under Assistant Town Manager's update, where we can't really have this dialogue, or can we? Can we have this under an update? Because this wasn't on the agenda. If we can, then we can talk about it, but if not, I don't want to overstep, because this is not on the agenda. I expected a discussion. I've got concerns with this.
I didn't even tie this, honestly, what's in board doc to this discussion, because it's just under Assistant Town Manager's update.
Sure, sure.
But
I would be open to feedback. As I said, I did review the minutes. I did watch the meeting as it occurred last year. So I don't know that you all can engage in a discussion or a dialogue about this amongst each other, but I'm open to your feedback on this process. If there was
outside of the
Yeah,
public
offline.
session? See, that's where this is a discussion I
Yeah.
wanted to have with the board. I expected it with the board, not outside of the board in your office. One of the issues I had last year, and granted, the past Assistant Town Manager had all those years of experience, we had a situation where there was a selectman, a veteran selectman that left, that had, I thought, very relevant comments. They were negative, and I wouldn't say negative, but they were constructive comments. The Assistant Town Manager, who is appointed and hired by the town manager, had the responsibility of looking at all the comments and condensing it. What came to us are just the positives, and the negatives didn't come. So I think that process is something I thought we were gonna talk about. It puts you in a precarious situation, because you're telling us about your boss and laying it all out. I don't know how those constructive comments, which I thought were very relevant, never got to us to discuss. So this process, it seems like what they're saying is, because there was offline, they become not public record because they're in the personnel file. I don't want that to happen again. I want this discussed at this meeting, like I said last year, the good, the bad, the ugly, because that's how we get better. Honestly, I think we should have a review of us, because we could do better. I think we owe it to the taxpayers to have a constructive criticism show on a public record. Right now, there's nothing in our town manager's file that reflects comments that were made. So, not to go backwards, but I
Actually,
wanna
there
go
is.
in a personnel file.
In his
that's not-
personnel file, and that's where it belongs.
So how was I gonna get that information from a past selectman to have a discussion with the board? Because I would have learned in that, I'm all about getting better and learning, but to
Sure.
put it behind closed doors, which is fine if that's the process, but it puts you in a position to look at 5 comments, pick the best ones, bring it forward, and take out the ones that are not flattering, and say it's personnel. And that's what happened. That's what happened.
I don't know if that's accurate,
Yes.
because it was all reviewed by the chairman.
And that's the flawed issue. I think it has to be discussion and open. It was,
That's, the process has always been like that.
and that's what I'm saying. I think we need to
And
change.
that's the process that's supposed to be used.
No,
So-
when I'm reading this, this says the process, if it's used, if it doesn't get into, if it's not public, then it stays that way.
Right.
It doesn't say to do it that way. It says if you choose to do it that way, it's stuck in confidential status.
What you're asking to do is the equivalent of taking my personnel file or my evaluation and discussing it amongst the 5 of you, or him discussing it on TV or amongst others, that it doesn't belong there.
And that's where we disagree, because I think it does. I think it's a public process. He works for the, he or she or any town manager works for the board, and I think we have to have free to discuss that. Not to be asked to send something electronically over to somebody, have somebody that's under that person evaluate it and give something back to us, and not having that discussion. So I think we differ on, I think you are a public employee, you're employed by the public, under the scrutiny of the Board of Selectmen, and you're taking that ability for us to have a full discussion away and saying it's HR. And the fact that you work for him, we don't hire you, we didn't even get a vote on it. You said, this is what we're doing. It was under chairman's update, or town manager's update. So your allegiance is to the town manager, not to the board. And no offense. I said
what's the
same thing.
timeline?
Offense is taken because my allegiance isn't to him. My allegiance is to the town of Foxborough.
Not you
So
personally.
Offense is taken.
Michael.
I'm just telling you.
All right,
So
let me
what's-
rephrase it. You were appointed, you were hired by the town manager, right? So that a town manager is asking his subordinate, in any town, to summarize reviews and give it to somebody else. And I wouldn't be saying this if we didn't just go through this last year, and I saw very clear comments that never made it back to us. What made it back was, this is the summary, and it wasn't the summary. So there's a flaw in the system, and it's not personal.
I understand.
It's a flaw in the system. So when we left last year, we were gonna have this discussion on doing a new process. So to see it on an update, I wasn't prepared for this. That's why I'm a little scatterbrained on this.
What is your timeline, Mike, to get this started and completed, or an evaluation started and completed?
So I was planning on giving Bill a couple of weeks to work on a self-evaluation, and then have him forward it so that you had about a month to work on it. I mean, I'm not in a rush. We could discuss in a couple of weeks. I mean, it doesn't have to happen right away.
Well, I want to get an evaluation done while the present
Well,
board,
present board
I mean, it
supports
doesn't
it.
make sense not to.
I mean, in that case, we could we could send it to him, have him take 2 weeks to do his input, a couple of weeks for you to do your input, and then I need some time to take those composite numbers, which do not get changed other than average, and take the essence of the remarks, and then turn that all over to the chair.
Or vice versa, you could just turn all the evaluations, I believe, into the chairman.
I think that
Yeah.
and I get, you can't have all 5 evaluations, that would be a
It
problem.
can't be
but-
shared amongst
Right,
board members.
right, but the averaging of the comments, of the numbers I guess it's the definition of essence, because that's a very subjective thing. And, you do report into him, you wouldn't, not many places do you see someone who's a direct subordinate of someone, you're kind of giving each other your evaluations, it's just, it doesn't happen. So, I think the question for me is, what is the essence? That's, can just all comments be shared? The average of the numbers, and then just all comments?
I will just want to correct you on one point, because the way that Mike described it is exactly how it's supposed to be done. And that's the way it is done in a lot of places, that the assistant will actually collect all the data, go review it with the chairman, and then ultimately they'll put together the final document.
But essence, that's picking and choosing things. Can it just be all the comments? Average of the numbers, and then all the comments, so that there's no conversation about things making it in, things not making it in. I mean, comments are probably the more important part. So I guess, my question would be more around the essence.
I mean,
I think that was my issue last year.
So,
When it was stated that this is the essence.
Sure.
And the only way that we found out it wasn't the essence is if we went and made an appointment. We couldn't even take the documents to look at it, and I'm looking at the essence, and I'm looking at the comments, and it was clearly, the negative stuff didn't make it into the essence.
And I
So-
think,
so-
let's keep that in perspective. I think there was one comment that was like that.
But I think we could all look at 5 evaluations, and every single person in this room could come up with a different summary of what the essence is. So it's just very
So
open-ended.
let me just explain. You all can look at, you all can come in and look at all the evaluations.
No, you can't.
See?
You can't do that. You can't do that.
That's why I think we have
You
to.
can't do that. Yeah,
it's
the chairman
the
can.
chair
The chairman can, but all the other, you can't, other board members can't look at other evaluations. That's just inappropriate. But you can look at the chairman can, because the chairman has to collect the data.
And can the chairman work with you
Yes.
to find out what
Absolutely.
goes on that final?
Absolutely. And that's
Yeah.
how it's supposed to be done. That's how it was done last year.
I mean, maybe that's the change to the process, or maybe that's part of a change to the process, is the chairman and I, after they all come in, look at what are those summary comments.
Because I 100% agree, a review without constructive feedback, I mean, if there's something downright nasty, I mean, we're not going to make that a public record, but we'll address that otherwise, but.
And just to backtrack, to put it in perspective, and I said this last year, I had a higher evaluation for you than the average, so I'm a process person.
Right, I
So
understand.
Fair enough.
I think there was some big gaps in that. And as far as you, Michael, I've known you since day one. Honestly, it's not a personal shot at you. You said it a little more eloquently, Leah. You're a subordinate to a boss, and we're relying on you to make him, no, I shouldn't say to make him, to get
capture
the
the
information, to capture the essence. And I believe it wasn't captured last time,
So
before your time.
just one correction to that whole thing, all right? If Mike did it on his own, I would absolutely agree with you, all right? But it's not done on his own. It's done with the chairman. So it's not like it's done completely on his own. If it was done entirely on his own, I completely agree with you. That's not, and that's not the way it's supposed to be done. But it has to be done with the chairman so it can be brought together in a mechanical way. So, all right?
Okay.
Fair enough.
And I'll just say, from my personal opinion, the selectmen's updates, the town manager update, the assistant town manager update, I get we may need those for things that aren't anticipated, or, hey, I went to a breakfast or this training, but things like this, I'll tell you, this doc, I didn't even tie to what you were gonna talk about. So in my opinion, stuff like this, or, someone being appointed, like that should be an agenda item so that people know what's gonna be on here. It helps us focus differently, and it may get the public to pay more attention. But if it's just lumped under a selectmen's update, we have, even I on the board.
I take full accountability for that. I mean, it's up to me to set the agenda. I did reach out to Mike back in December, January, and said, hey, I need you to look into this, look at the right process. My fault, 100%.
But in fairness, we've always done it that way. So if you want to change it, that's fine. I don't think anybody objects to that. But that's how we've always done it up until now.
Okay.
In terms of the update, in terms of the process.
The updates are.
The process of the evaluation, Jim, was always done through the assistant town manager during the update process. If you recall, I think that's the way it's always been done, at least it's how, since I've been here. In terms of the evaluation process, it wasn't an agenda item.
No, but if we're talking about,
I understand what you're saying,
Yeah,
as
just-
far as the update.
I didn't have a chance to formulate any of my thoughts,
Sure.
because I didn't even tie that this memorandum here
Right.
was
Fair enough.
related to
Right.
that
And
item
that-
that you're
and
talking
that's-
about. And I probably would have given it more
Yeah.
thought,
I
done a little
didn't
bit
see
more
it
looking
until
into
we
it.
just opened it,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
an update, I didn't expect an attachment to. I was reading it as you were saying, because I didn't even know it was there.
Right, right.
Linda?
So I was trying to get, and I apologize for that being confusing and being somewhat hidden, that wasn't my intention. I was trying to get ahead of this so that you all have time to, to put some thought into putting this together, and trying to look at, between last meeting and this one, which actually had 2 more action items on it than we actually got to. And then next week, I know, or 2 weeks from now, is also gonna be very busy. I'm just trying to figure out, and I know the board wanted, or the gentleman wanted to, just to hear about this before we got into it. So I apologize for not delivering it a little earlier in the meeting, but.
No, I get it, yep.
Can I just ask one more question? So reading this here, it doesn't talk about the assistant town manager putting this all together. I think this is geared towards the chairman putting it all together and then giving back the summary. years back, that's what we used to do. We did not have an assistant town manager, we didn't have an HR director. The chairman asked for comments, got them all back, and distributed it. And that's,
So I don't think the only difference in this, I'm trying not to split hairs here because I know it's late and I know everybody wants to finish up. But just so you know, the mechanical piece is simply doing the math and then doing the, and then summarizing the comments. And none of that goes down to the final document until it's approved by the chairman. So and that's how it was done. So it wasn't like, that decision was not made individually by the assistant town manager last year.
I understand, but the only difference is you've got, for lack of better words, a boss and a subordinate. We're the bosses, we do the evaluation, we summarize it, and we distribute it. Here, it's gone down to the subordinate doing it for their boss, and it just doesn't sit.
Well, they're not doing, it's not doing the evaluation, it's just summarizing the
Summarizing, and I think
information.
that the numbers, and let's face it, it's either meets improvement or exceeds improvement, that's, unless it was.
Yeah, I mean,
issues we know
there was no
before that.
question about the ranks.
So it's either a 4 or 5,
Yeah.
that's historically what it's
Right,
been, but it's the comments and the suggestions, I think it was more critical than a 4 or a 5,
Understand,
so.
understand.
Since I'm new to this, is it possible to get a blank one just so I can look at
Sure.
it ahead of time? Because, if it's on an accelerated timeline, just
Right.
where it's my first time going through it.
Sure, absolutely.
All right.
I didn't mean there was a speaker or anything.
You said exactly what I was gonna say, Jim, I'm just gonna remind you that wasn't the process before, because we didn't have that assistant.
Right.
Anything else, Mike?
Well,
I think that's enough, don't say anything more.
I guess just to capture that, and to, I guess to make sure I've got, so that it's not a subordinate, appearing like they're creating an evaluation for their boss. The chair is the one really doing this, and myself, from an HR perspective, we're working on this to make sure that we're doing it correctly and
Properly done,
and
right.
so I'm just keeping it within the HR guidelines of municipal government, and then the chair is making sure that the comments are appropriate. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Or did I miss one?
I'd have to go back and watch, but I think last year was all about the essence. That's what I remember is.
But it came down to really one comment. That was it.
I
That was
haven't,
it.
All right.
this is a year ago, yeah. I
That was
know.
it.
All right.
That's it.
Good. Okay, action items.
Only a couple. Move to approve request for extension of hours on food service only to 2 AM on April 13th, 2019 for UFC fight, and that is at CBS Sporting Club.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Move to approve Foxborough Recreation Public Event Application for 2019 Farmers Market on the Common, Thursdays from 4 to 8 PM, from June 6, 2019 to August 29th, 2019.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? Just under discussion, I want to thank them for bringing that back again. All those in favor? Aye.
Move to accept gift donation of $20 to the Boyden Library from Margaret Regan in memory of Mary Cutler.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
And then 2 minutes to approve, which we'll approve separately. Move to approve February 5th, 2019 minutes.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Move to approve February 19th, 2019 minutes.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion?
I wasn't here for that one, so I'm just going to abstain.
Leah abstaining. Motion was made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Those in favor? Good night, everybody.
I think we got it now.